this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Tanya, are there any sunshine announcements that you would like to make?
Yes, Chair. In accordance with the Open Publics Meeting Act, this notice for this agenda was posted in the Jersey Journal, El Especialito, and outside the clerk's office. And I have the notices or the journal agenda to be marked into evidence under A1.
Okay, this would be B1 in evidence for tonight.
C1? Sorry, B1.
Okay, would you please take roll call?
Commissioner Barron? Commissioner Boyle?
Yeah.
Commissioner Shadid?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Zloblicki?
Here.
Vice Chair Arujo?
Here.
Chair Coyle?
Present.
7 are present.
Okay. Can we all please stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bridget, can you please swear in any of your staff members that are in attendance?
That's it, I'm in tonight.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony or comments you're about to make this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Tanya, are there any correspondence you want to share with us or any adjournments?
Yep, correspondence and adjournments. So we have a new agenda that I believe you have, but let me go off of the agenda that was sunshine, just so there's consistency. There's an agenda in the back that matches an updated agenda, just so there's no confusion. But Z22075, otherwise known as 850 West Side Avenue, is being carried to February 22nd, along with Z22079, otherwise known as 146 to 152 Glenwood, is being carried to February 22nd. And I believe that is it for the adjournments.
So tonight we have 3 cases, and I just want to let everyone know that we will not begin any cases after 10 p.m. So if something ends at 9:45, we certainly will not start, only because it's going to go way past 10 p.m. for us. If we're in the middle of one of the cases and it's past 10, I'm certainly not going to shut that down. Okay. So tonight, I think we will begin with case number Z22-089, which is a continuation from our last meeting of 128 Glenwood Avenue. Okay.
All right.
Okay, sure. Okay, our first case then tonight is Z23-028, and this is for a C variance for 312 Fairmont Avenue. So Tanya, can you please promote whoever is representing us, and also present any speakers and be sworn in?
Do you might have to press it? Yep.
There we go.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Joseph for the applicant. I'd like to confirm we've received notices and mark those in evidence.
Mr. Joseph, we have your notices,
Put your
your
mic on,
affidavit, proof of service. And so Bridget will put that as A1. You've got it in front of you there.
This will be A1 in evidence for, is this
312 Fairmont.
Yeah.
A1 in evidence.
All right, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. 312 Fairmont Avenue. This is located mid-block on Fairmont Avenue. It's near the intersection of Fairmont and Boland. What the applicant wants to do here is expand the existing building to accommodate a 3-story, 2-family home in the R1 zone. In order to accomplish this, we are requesting a collection of C variances. There's no site plan approval here. That's why we're in front of this board and not in front of the planning board. We have an architect and a planner testifying this evening. So let's get our architect up here and sworn in. Tanya, how do we do the electronic?
So there's an HDMI plug right there,
Okay.
and if everything works, you should just be able to plug in, and it should come up.
Okay, if we have a laptop.
Fingers
okay.
crossed.
What's that? Okay, yeah.
We don't have a laptop this evening, so we're going to go the old-fashioned way with some boards.
Very nice. I don't know how to use a laptop either.
Okay, would you read that last one? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And state and spell your full name for the record.
My name is Caroline, Caroline. My middle name is Maeve, Maeve. My last name is Greco, Grieco.
Thank you.
Okay, so as Steve mentioned, the neighborhood is mostly surface parking surrounding this building. There is some mid-rise public housing also on the same block.
Excuse me, 1 second, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Joseph, do you think you should qualify her? I'm not familiar.
Sorry.
I'm not familiar with her.
Terribly sorry.
Yeah.
So why don't you just give us some background, your education, and maybe some other boards that you appeared in front of in the past, and just confirm your license is current and in good standing this evening.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
So yes, my license is in good standing. I'm licensed in both New York and New Jersey. I have appeared in front of the Union City and also the West New York Board in the last couple of years. And I've been licensed for about 10 years.
And in those boards, you've qualified as an architect?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
We accept your qualifications.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so back to the project.
Back to, right.
Okay, so the side of the street adjacent to the property at 312 Fairmont are two other low-rise residential buildings. There's one other low-rise residential building on the opposite side of the street, but otherwise, again, the block is mostly surface parking and also mid-rise public housing. So the lot is a little bit oversized at 2,780. There's an existing two-story single-family home on this property. There's a single-story addition in the back it just houses the kitchen currently, which we're removing, and we're going to be adding a three-story addition. The objective of the project is to do a single to two-family conversion, and the homeowner is going to be living in one of the units. The homeowner's unit we're referring to as apartment A. That has 4 bedrooms and 3.5 baths. And then there's a rental unit also in the back, and that's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. There's a third story with a roof deck that's surrounded by a green roof. And we are also doing quite a few lot improvements in the rear yard. We're adding landscaping where there's currently just hardscape. We're also removing the surface parking from the front of the building and adding landscaping in the front of the building as well. Steve, can you grab the unit plans? Thanks. So I just, actually a suggestion from the planner was just to create unit plans so they're color coded. So the yellow,
So I'm sorry. So we would need to enter this into evidence. This is on the plans already. It's the floor plans, but it's just color coded on one page.
A2?
A2.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A2 in evidence. Just describe it for the record.
So this is the floor plans for the property, each floor, and it's color coded to identify each unit.
so the homeowner's unit, which is unit A, is in yellow. So they'll have responsibility for the existing cellar, also the new crawl space. There are 2 entrances to the homeowner's unit. The first entrance is through the front. There'll be a common hallway, so you could either go upstairs to get to the apartment, the rental apartment in the rear, or continue into the homeowner's unit on the first level. There's a second entrance, and that's going to be on the side of the property at grade. The purpose of that entrance is that the client has an elevator in this property due to a ambulatory handicap for someone in their family. So they wanted an entrance at grade. So there are 2 entrances, but they're both to that first floor unit, homeowner's unit. Up second story, the front of the building is a primary suite for the homeowners. The rental property is in the back, the rental apartment. There's 2 bedrooms in the rental apartment and a second story. And then in the front, again on the 3rd story, is the roof deck, a green roof, and also another bedroom and bathroom. I think we're good.
Is there any way that you could bring that closer for all of us to take a look at this? I mean, do you have any renderings of what it's going to look like when you're finished, or what you're proposing it to look like?
So existing and proposed elevations. So on the left side of the sheet is the existing 2-story building, and then on the right side of the sheet is the existing structure with the addition.
Why don't you describe the materials that were proposed?
Sure. So the front of the building is a medium gray hardy plank material with black shutters and white trim. The idea is that the existing structure is 2-story. It's not a new structure. It's probably built, circa turn of the century. So the idea was to kind of maintain the character of the existing structure and maintain that 2-story structure, and then just add the addition on the back in order to get the space that the family needed for their owner's unit. So, traditional wood framed house, traditional plank siding. It's, very in line with the character of Jersey City neighborhoods. And, basic lantern lighting, and they have some decorative brick at the base of the building.
Can you bring the original piece up a little closer and walk it past us so we can all see it?
The cover page? Yep.
Yeah.
I apologize. I thought, for some reason, I thought there was going to be the city laptop.
I'll stand on my head.
Okay, just which is the building?
I can't hear you for the record.
Can you guys, when you talk, can
Which
you just
bit-
make sure
yeah.
your microphone's on?
Sorry, yeah. Which is the middle building in this photo right here?
The middle building in the photos of the streetscape is the subject property.
Okay. So what is the final rendering of that project?
So we'll bring that one around as well.
We have it in there. We have it in
All
there.
right, let me see.
How did you get that?
Up on the laptop.
Okay, we
All right,
have to
so-
bring it for you.
And this is new.
Very nice showcasing.
Yeah.
There is. Do you want
I
it?
just said this
Oh,
is
it's
the
too late
existing
now.
building
Yeah.
here, and this is the new.
So technically, you're,
Ma'am?
You bought that.
so you're technically going to build on top of this building? Is that what you're saying?
I hear you. I got it. Yep. We are building in the back. Steve, could you grab the other elevations?
So this picture that you're showing is the back of it?
This is the front elevation.
Okay,
This is the proposed front elevation, and this is the proposed rear elevation.
okay.
So the 3-story addition is in the back of the building. So we're maintaining the existing 2-story structure
I see.
and
I see.
adding a 3-story addition in the back.
Oh, okay, okay. So you're just kind of fixing the front up and then just adding it in the back.
Yes, I believe there's major improvement to the front of the building, yes.
I see. Okay. Maybe you can.
No, I saw it. I had my glasses on.
With my glasses, I can see pretty far.
Okay.
We're getting it up on our. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's on.
Side view, the side view shows it best.
How about that? Do I get that? over?
So that concludes our architectural testimony. We're going to bring our planner up next.
Okay.
I don't know. Is it? We don't have it anywhere. You have it, no?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state, spell your name for the
Okay,
Carolyn Worstel, Worstell.
okay. Let me,
And I assume the board accepts Carolyn's qualifications.
Yes, she's been before us many times.
And my license is still in good standing this evening.
Great.
All right, thank you, everyone. So we're here for this little project here at 312 Fairmont Avenue with a couple of C variances. This is a little bit of a legacy project. We're actually applying for this application under the old R1 zoning standards. So I will ask you to just indulge me as I remind you again what those standards used to be as it relates to this project. And that just results from the fact that this application was submitted some time ago before the new zoning came into effect. So we're here for a height variance. If you remember in the R1 zone, it used to be that your permitted height was based on a sum of the individual floors that you were proposing. And so that created, determined your height. And then if you had a flat roof, you got an additional 5 feet. If you had a peaked roof, you had an additional 5 feet. And for a flat roof, you didn't get that additional 5 feet. This structure is existing, has a bit of a peaked roof. It has currently a building height of 25 feet to the peak of that roof. The project, as it's designed, is sort of redesigning that peak. It's going to remove the peak roof, and it's going to place it with a flat roof on the existing structure. And then the new rear structure is also going to have a flat roof. So we're moving from that peaked roof standard now into a flat roof standard. And in addition, there are certain aspects of the building, the building height requirements under the old R1 that don't address certain irregularities in certain types of structures. So for instance, this building has a cellar. It has 3 feet between the finished elevation of the sidewalk and the height of the first floor. So in this instance, we need some additional height because there's an existing cellar. And where height is measured based on your floor-to-floor heights, and a cellar doesn't count as a floor, we don't get that additional height. So it creates sort of this need for this variance. In addition, we have a couple of areas where the space between the floors is a little deeper than we typically expect. Typically on a plan you're used to seeing, you've got your floor to ceiling and then there's a foot between the ceiling and the next floor. That's pretty standard and typical as you expect to see. This application, because it is a sort of an adaptive reuse of an existing structure and then they're adding an addition, there is some spaces where we're seeing some of these floor to the heights between the floors is slightly larger than 1 foot. So overall, essentially, we end up with a building that is 34 feet and 2 inches. This really doesn't offend the need or the intent of your height requirement, which is namely light and air. Overall, the proposed height, that 34 feet 2 inches, is less than the maximum of 39 feet, which would have been permitted in the R1 district for flat roof buildings. That would have been the maximum that you could build for a flat roof building. So we're still well under that height. And if we were to consider this and think about this in the new R1 standards, which is not what's being applied here, but if we were to think about it, we are still less than the 35 feet, which is permitted now in the R1. So I really think here that we're not offending the intent of that standard, but we're really allowing for the flexibility of adaptively reusing that existing structure here on this property. And then
we are asking for a variance for a minimum side yard setback. We're being a little conservative here. The existing structure has a non-conforming 0-foot side yard setback along the western side. We are not adding additional interior floor area at the 0-foot lot line. However, because we are changing from a peaked roof to a flat roof, that sidewall is being altered, and so we're requesting this variance because we're altering the wall, which is along that 0-foot lot line, but we're not adding interior space. The addition that is being proposed in the rear and the third floor story, the sort of penthouse that's going to be on top of the existing structure, both of those are set back they're set back at least 2 feet from that lot line, which is the conforming side yard standard. So all of the new additions do meet the minimum requirement. And so we're just asking for it because of that change in the roof line. And then finally, we're looking for a front yard setback variance. And again, I think this is a little bit of a conservative ask here. So the project is proposing a third floor addition on top of the existing structure that's going to be set back 33 feet 6 inches from the front lot line. The existing 2-story facade is at 18.3 feet. That's the existing setback. So there's going to be about 12 feet between your existing facade and that third floor facade. The R1 district standard states that the primary facade of a building shall match the setback of the closest permitted use, provided that the setback shall be closest to the predominant setback of the block. This setback requirement is neither a minimum nor a maximum. It means that you have to match it. So if you're closer or you're farther, you have to ask for a variance. The definition of the front primary facade in the LDO is defined as the street front building facade, which runs roughly parallel to the front lot line. For the purposes of yard calculations, projecting accessory structures including decks, porches, balconies, fencing, stoops, or stairs are excluded. We're proposing here a third floor facade that's set back more than 30 feet from the lot line, and it's set back 12 feet from the existing facade. When we look at this, we typically don't really think of it really as being part of a primary facade because it's so far set back. It's really not going to feel like part of that facade, but it technically meets the definition of a primary front facade, and so that's why we're asking here for that variance. We're not moving the existing facade of the first 2 floors, which are already non-conforming because they don't match either of the existing structures on either side. All 3 of those buildings have slightly different setbacks. So overall, I think that asking for this variance, we're really not, again, offending that intent of that front yard setback because we're actually pushing the building back. We're maintaining that existing sort of 2-story facade here. And so it maintains that character of the street. And I think there may have been a little bit of a note in the staff report that may have mentioned variance for combined front and rear yard setback. I think that might have been a little bit of a typo or a misunderstanding. The combined setback here is 18.3 feet at the front plus 25.5 feet at the rear, which exceeds the minimum of 35 combined setback required for front and yard under those old standards. So we don't need that variance. And then finally, I believe we asked for a variance for bathrooms on consecutive floors. So in the old R1 height standards, it had a requirement, a restriction that said a minimum of 2 adjacent floors must be connected solely by means of a staircase internal to the unit, and provided that only one of the 2 internally connected floors may have a kitchen and or a full bath. So in this application, apartment 1 occupies all 3 floors of the building, the master unit, and there's a full bath on each of those floors. The intent of this requirement was to reduce the instances of potential illegal third unit conversions, and that's not the intent here. The client is intending to provide space for a multi-generational household that needs that has resulted in bedrooms and full baths on all 3 floors. However, I don't believe that there's first of all, that restriction, I think, has been removed from the R1 standards. But even under the, but even the concern if there is someday in the future, not by this applicant, but someday if somebody were to create a third unit, under current R1 district standards, this lot, which is slightly oversized, could permit a third unit. So I don't believe that there really would be any concern or issue with allowing for this variance, because under current standards, you could have a third unit. But again, that's not the intent here. I think overall the benefits of this project vastly outweigh any of the detriments of the three bulk variants being requested. This project is eliminating non-conforming front yard parking and a curb cut on the street, which is to be replaced with new front yard landscaping and a new street tree, which vastly improves the street frontage along this block. It's also reducing the impervious coverage of the site. Currently, you've got front yard parking, and then there's a driveway that goes around, and then the rear yard is got a lot of concrete. This project would remove the concrete in the rear yard to replace by both the addition, but also a lot of new landscaping and a patio, which overall reduces the lot coverage of this lot. It's conforming with R1 standards, and it adds a partial green roof. So I think overall this project provides a lot of benefits in terms of removing a lot of that coverage that exists there today. So overall, I think the project really advances the purposes of the municipal land use law. The requested deviations will guide the appropriate use of this property, which is a two-family in the R1 district, consistent with Purpose A. Consistent with Purpose E of the municipal land use law, it will promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations. Again, we're proposing a new two-family here in the R1 district. And then it will promote a more desirable visual environment consistent with Purpose I. Again, we're removing all of those non-conforming front yard parking. We're adding the street tree. So overall, I think this will result in a massively much more attractive street frontage, not only for this property, but also for the block as a whole. In looking at the negative criteria, granting the deviations will not result in a substantial detriment to the general welfare. It's two-family dwelling. It's a permitted use. It's consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. There's going to be adequate separation between the proposed addition and adjacent buildings, allowing for light air and open space. And it eliminates the non-conforming front yard parking, really eliminates the driveway and the curb cut, and creates lots of new open space and landscaping where today there's impervious coverage. And then it likewise will not result in a substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan or the zoning ordinance. It's consistent with the intent of the R1 district to encourage compatible infill development with 1 and 2 family homes that preserve the streetscape, utilize on-street parking where frontages are narrow, and maintain the low-rise character of the area. So I believe this project really is consistent with the intent of that R1 district. So overall, I think that the variances can be granted and that they meet both the positive and the negative criteria. And that's the rest of my testimony, unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, is that the end of the presentations?
Conclude our direct testimony this evening.
Okay, great. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask, is there anyone in the room this evening who would like to comment on this project? Please come to the mic.
Be possible to have 5 minutes to review the boards before I make my comments, because everything was shown to you, but nothing was shown to us out here.
Yes. Yes, please turn the boards around so that they can come up and take a look at the project.
Thank you very much.
Shouldn't be a screen.
No, then bring a computer.
This one,
Should have put the plans up. You would think, right? Cool way to say. Captain May. Yeah, we're still here for that. I told them that it doesn't look good, Ben. We should think about withdrawing this. and redesigning it. Look, I'm just telling you, talk to your client, do whatever you want to do.
Sorry. So how much distance is on this side?
Oh, there you go. What's it? Yeah, well, why don't we go off the record for 5 minutes? That might be better for everyone here. Most especially Bridget.
It's all your fault.
Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding, the whole truth and nothing but the truth,
Yes, I do.
and state and spell your full name for the record, please.
Charlene Burke, C-H-A-R-L-E-N-E-B-U-R-K. And thank you for the accommodation of allowing us to look at the boards. That's much appreciated. This is right around the corner from where I live. And it abuts the historic district. So it is actually, in listening to the project, it was very nice to hear about the removal of the parking, the illegal parking that's in front, and returning it to a garden. There's a lot of positives I can see about this, and even the sensitivity about pushing back the third floor so that this way it's not intrusive on the streetscape when you add an addition. So I'm not here to criticize, but rather compliment that we could have more projects, particularly as they buffer a historic district. That's one of the great concerns, is since the blocks across the street or backing up against it don't have necessarily those protections, that sometimes it's inappropriate development that can take place there and then really impact the historic district. So I think this will be a pleasant addition to Fairmont Avenue. And even though it's a lot of bedrooms or a lot of bathrooms, that's fine. And, you know, my concern is it doesn't look like it's so easy to convert to a 3-family, although that's apparently permitted, or could be permitted. But it looks like this is a nice 2-family house that perhaps will continue as such and bring good, solid neighbors to the neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals from the community that would like to comment? Okay, we'll close out the public portion of the meeting. Commissioners, do we have any comments or questions about the project?
I just had one. I think she answered it. The parking I see, obviously the car in front of the door is illegal, but it looks like a curb cut with an alley. Is that a legal parking driveway?
Sorry, it's currently a legal non-conforming condition, but it's being removed as part of the application.
Okay.
Staff, do we have any comments that we would like to make at this time?
Yes, I will not belabor anything. I thought the applicant's planner did a great job. And a report was submitted to you from Francisco Espinoza. I'll just read in the conditions if you're okay with that. All materials and color selections shown on final plans cannot be changed, and if they aren't changed, even if it's required by the Office of the Construction Code, it has to be in consultation with planning staff and possible approval by the zoning board. All street trees and landscaping, and I'll just add the green roof, shall be installed prior to the certificate of occupancy. And the applicant shall provide an affidavit from the architect of record representing that the constructed project is consistent with the final approved plans.
For the record, the applicant does accept all conditions.
Okay. If there are no further comments from the commissioners, I would be asking for a motion to approve with conditions case Z23-028, 312 Fairmont Avenue.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case Z23-028 as presented to the board this evening.
I'll second.
Okay, on the motion to approve, Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Barron,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Shadid,
That was me.
Commissioners Lucky,
Yes.
Vice Chair Arujo,
Yes.
and Chair Coyle.
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed, none abstained. Motion carries.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Yeah, motion. Now we're going to go back to the first case.
Okay, so now we will go back to case Z22-089, which is a continuance from our last meeting of the applicant for 128 Glenwood Avenue.
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
members of the board, commissioners. How's everybody doing this evening?
We're good, thanks.
So, without belaboring the point, where we are with this application, currently, we had gone through our case in chief. I believe that there was an objector who had brought up a planner, and that was concluded, and the matter was open to the public. My understanding for this evening is that the neighbor has an additional witness or two that they would like to present, which we take no objection to, and ultimately, I would just ask the board, after conclusion of the neighbor's case, and after conclusion of staff's case, if we could as well have the opportunity to respond and to sum up as appropriate, if that would be all right. But
Sure.
beyond that, I'm not going to take more of the board's time at the moment, and I'm happy to turn it over to Ms. Hagianis.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. I'm here tonight to finish up our objector presentation. Our first witness is Nathan McCormick, who is a homeowner at the adjacent property, 130 Glenwood. Okay, and Nathan,
Raise your right hand, Ms. Horn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
And could you state your full name for the record?
Nathan McCormick, Nathan. Last name McCormick is MacCormack.
okay, so Mr. McCormick, would you explain to the board how you ended up living on Glenwood Avenue?
Of course, and before I do, I just want to thank everyone for your time, not only this evening, but also at the last session. I know you all went above and beyond what's expected of you, so thank you very much for your time. So yes, I had been living downtown at Dixon Mills with my wife. She's been in Jersey City for about 15 years. I've been in Jersey City for about 8 years. And at a certain point, we wanted some space, some greenery, and we decided to look in McGinley Square, and we're happy to find the house that we did.
Okay, and how did you decide to purchase your home on Glenwood?
So we were thrilled to find this, our house for sale at 130 Glenwood Avenue, right next to the adjacent property that's on the agenda tonight. And it's one of 5 homes that was built in 1895 with historic qualities. And so it was a pretty easy thing for us to realize that we could bring this house back to life. And we painstakingly renovated, trying to retain the integrity of all those original details, which we were basically able to do.
Okay, and what do you like about living in your neighborhood?
So the first thing that comes to mind is just how spacious it is. After living downtown in Jersey City, we were really happy to find something a little more calm. Again, greenery. The subject property this evening was a community garden right next door to us, which my wife volunteered at, and numerous neighbors had also volunteered at. And just the diversity of the block is pretty amazing as well. For Jersey City is known as the melting pot or the salad bowl, and I feel like you can really feel that on our block.
Okay, and you reviewed the developer's plans for 128 Glenwood. What's your reaction to the plans?
So, as much as I appreciate the developer's team meeting with us to try and come to a meeting of the minds, I feel like it's essentially just too large for our enclave of historic homes. It's, you know, to be blunt, it feels kind of like a Bayonne box with some Victorian details, but at the end of the day, it will absolutely box us in and create a sawtooth pattern on our block. It won't sustain the integrity of the streetscape on our block, and I feel like it does not complement, again, our home, our section of 5 historic homes.
Okay, and is there anything else you feel it's important for the board to understand?
Just essentially, I just would like everyone to realize that, you know, when my wife and I bought our house 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, we did it with the idea that, you know, Jersey City is our home. We wanted to try and contribute something to the neighborhood. A lot of people have complimented the work that we've done, and you know, have admired the work that we've done on our house and saying that it has, you know, beautified the block. And you know, at the same time, we're just sort of regular, hardworking people. I'm a civil servant with a government job. My wife is an artist, and we both worked hard, and we're thrilled that we were able to afford a house in Jersey City at all. And so we're basically hoping that, you know, again, with a meeting of the minds, that we can come up with a solution that not only we're happy to live with, but that actually can benefit the residents of Glenwood Avenue.
Okay, so thanks very much, Mr.
Thank you.
McCormack. And our next witness is Sharon McCormack.
Did you want me to have a chance to question Mr.
Oh,
McCormick?
if you want to, yeah, sure. Sorry about
I'm
that.
happy to wait until after.
I'm here now.
Whatever you prefer, if you want to.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so if it's okay with the board,
Sure,
so
why don't you,
just,
yes.
just a couple of questions. So first
Sure.
off, good evening, Mr. McCormick.
Good evening.
Good to see you as always. And just to start, thank you for acknowledging that we made every effort
This is a
we could,
subdivision.
to meet with the public on several occasions. I think it's very genuine, and I appreciate that. You mentioned in your testimony that this is a block of, I think, 6 lots, 5 of which are historic homes, I believe is what you said.
There are
Or
actually,
homes with historic quality, to be.
there are currently 4 homes with historic quality. Up until 5-6 months ago, there were 5 homes with historic quality, so we're determined to make sure that number stays the way it is.
Okay, so you mentioned there were 5, there's now 4.
Correct.
If you could just let the board know what happened. Yes.
Absolutely. So, if I'm not mistaken, your client purchased the 5th property at 124 Glenwood, and basically the house was raised, and I believe that's actually something that's going to be, you know, in the next year we'll see something new next door, or 4 doors down from us, and next door to our neighbors who are here this evening.
Okay, and to your knowledge, and you might not know the answer, but to your knowledge, do you know if they got a demo permit to demolish that structure at 124?
To my understanding, they did.
Okay, and did Historic weigh in to suggest that the home should not be demolished for having historic qualities?
To my understanding, I'm trying to recall, historic, I can't speak to that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think he's competent.
If you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
That's fine. You know, just judicial notice that obviously to get a demo permit, it has to pass through that process. So, you know, it was determined that it's okay to demolish. Really, my only other questions for you, have you made any attempt, or has the city made any attempt to actually designate any of these remaining homes as historic?
We are in discussions right now, hoping that the city will work with us to protect, whether it's our enclave of the 4 historic homes or the block. Either way, we are absolutely wanting to work with the city to protect our block and make sure that no further homes are lost.
Okay, and are you familiar with what the U zoning bulk requirements would allow in terms of massing on this property?
I'm only aware of what your particular project is proposing, but not specifically for I can't speak to the university zoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you aware that the 4 stories that we are proposing is contemplated within the U zoning?
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right, well then, that's been explained. The other properties, are you aware that they are zoned R3, the other properties in this enclave?
I am aware that there's a a mix of zoning on our block that actually, if anything, speaks to how much we do need the city to work with us, because it really sort of defies logic as to which homes are designated U zoning and which are R3. It's very inconsistent. So yes, I know there's a mix of R3 and university in our enclave of homes.
Okay, and then lastly, just to your knowledge, again, this, as long as you've lived here, this has remained, I believe it's a community garden most recently.
Right.
Do you know what it was before community garden? And you might not know if you weren't there.
I was not there, but thanks to my neighbors and tax records from the 1930s, have come to find that there was a house that was the same size as our house, same scale as our house, which is really all we're asking for, right next door to us. That has, I believe, not been there for a few decades. So
So you're asking for the same scale as your house, but knowing that the other houses within this little enclave are not all within the same scale as your house.
that's not true. The other houses were all built by the same developer in the same year, and they're all the same, roughly, scale.
Okay, if that's the case, then so be it. I did have an opportunity to take a look at, and I believe we showed plans that indicate that there are different depths to each of these. But, okay, that's it for my questioning of Mr. McCormick.
Okay.
I just had one
Yes.
redirect question. So you heard Mr. Wine asked you about the home that was demolished at 124 Glenwood. Do you feel it was worthy of historic protection?
I have to object. I don't know that Mr. McCormick is qualified.
Well, I'm asking him about his feelings. I mean, not about an expert opinion.
To be clear, as a non-historian, a non-historic expert,
Sure, yeah.
then I have no issue with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's his subjective feeling.
So, can I answer the question?
Yes,
Is this okay?
certainly. Go
Thank
right
you.
ahead.
Yes, as someone, again, who has done quite a bit of research into our historic enclave, knowing that these 5 homes were built by the same developer, I genuinely believe that if our home currently existed within the historic district, it would absolutely qualify, and I think anyone would agree if they saw the streetscape of our home.
So again,
So,
I have to
yes,
just object on the basis of, I don't mean to.
it's an opinion, that's
I
all.
don't mean this personally. It's just suggesting that something would qualify for as a contributing resource within a historic district is not within your purview. So I think that that's just got to be clear for the record. Ms. Hajianis, do you have a
No,
problem with
no,
that?
noted. I mean, I think it's more Mr. LaPaglia's.
So you asked him what his feeling was?
Yes.
And his feeling was, or should be, it shouldn't have been knocked down.
Right, that's right.
Isn't that the
Yes.
answer?
That's my
Yes,
answer,
that's right.
yes.
I thought
Yes,
so.
yes.
Right, thank
I
you,
heard
thank
something
you.
else, but I thought that was going to be the answer.
Thank you, that's it, that's simple, yes.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for your time, appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
thank you.
I am going to try to plug in my computer because Ms. McCormick has or Mrs. McCormick has a couple of visuals that she wants to display, so. Well, actually, Nathan, oh, maybe we want to go off. Nathan, can you help me? Yeah, he's the IT person.
Yes.
This is an old computer.
Don't- yeah.
Do you have the USB stick?
I have the
No, no,
USBs.
let's,
Yeah, I have
we'll
one.
take a break for the moment until we get this straightened out, yeah.
See, they have a whole bunch of stuff.
Unfortunately, I'll be of no help, because
Yeah, I think, actually, Mr. McCormick's a court reporter.
McCormick is what?
He's a court reporter, so he's.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes, I am.
Where?
Brooklyn Supreme Court,
Oh, great.
but I don't think this is actually the right size.
Oh, we've done it before.
Here we go.
There's a thing too.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a court reporter, not a tech guy.
Okay.
That's good?
So I have,
That she's almost ready to go.
I have everything up that you might want to refer to.
I didn't know if you wanted to include the Jersey
What's that?
Journal
Yes,
article
what
or not.
Ben's not objecting to that, so
I mean,
it's.
it's kind of up to you if you thought it was.
It's your desk.
I don't know. We'll see. I guess we could. It wouldn't hurt. But what?
So we're in a similar situation that we were last week, and I'm not really sure.
Tanya, you on the record? So you've been off the record for a moment.
It's either way. I'm just saying that that's not coming up.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing that it was before, but I don't know what happened on Tuesday that was so different than right now. I
Okay.
do know that on Monday, Maggie was able to use the HDMI over the document table. I don't know if that's something you want to do, so that might work. Otherwise, Dias 3's HDMI works.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, here I didn't.
Does it work now?
Okay. Can you see anything now? Okay.
I guess we don't need it yet, right?
It's like Brooklyn, right, Mr. McCormick?
Oh, no, wait, it did, it did. So which one would I want to
Without the judge
do?
to chastise us.
And I
Yeah.
brought I brought paper copies too, but I just think it's easier for you all to look at your screens, yeah.
I have a really hard
Oh,
time.
there you go.
Okay, so, but I don't think we need to show anything. Okay, okay, I think we're. It is, yes. Okay, so Sean, we're gonna have to start your testimony.
Okay.
I can't even.
Raise your right hand to be sworn. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you, and please state and spell your full name for the record.
My name is Shireen McCormick, SHIRINMACCORMACK.
Good evening, Mrs. McCormick.
Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity.
Okay, so you reviewed the plans for 128 Glenwood very closely. What is your biggest concern?
The plans are out of scale. They're for massive infill that simply doesn't fit. The proposal engulfs neighbors' homes. It burdens aging infrastructure. It impairs existing resident well-being. Scale was the #1 priority in community feedback. We're talking about 3 to 4 times higher density than surrounding buildings, 5,858 square feet versus 1,600, 11 bedrooms versus 3, a rear setback of 44 feet versus 78. That's half. A depth of 77.5 feet versus 37. That's twice as much. 4 stories versus 2.5, 4 units versus 1, one small new growth curbside tree, replacing a treescape of 100-year-old endangered elm trees that are groundwater mitigating, backyard trees in an area that's already had terrible flooding. The lot is on a small one-way street in the university zone. The West Bergen East Lincoln Park Historic District ends just a block away. The dorms, the former St. Peter's University dorms on the same block, were deemed by the HP office as historically significant. We believe that our enclave of homes is, as Sandra Riley said last meeting, a neighborhood within a neighborhood. We believe they're special, and we believe they need to be protected. We believe that the historic, architectural, and sociocultural significance was somehow overlooked. They comprise a row of Queen Anne Victorians, the first and last of their kind in the city north of Montgomery, known as the Mayhew Terrace Cottages. They were built in 1895 by William W. Coffin, 129 years ago. One purpose of the university zone, from my research, because I read master plans now and I read up on the zoning, is the zone is to protect the existing residential neighborhood and its quality of life from buildings like this one. These plans even demand a side buffer variance of under 3 feet where 10 is required. People spoke to all this at the last meeting. People expressed how that's not enough to get people out. They're not going to jump out the window, and there's no room for a ladder if there's a fire. Every inch, the community came out. They came out again tonight because this is to our detriment. And it's every inch for every dollar being sought on land not zoned to allow for this.
Okay, Mrs. McCormick, do you have any observations that you feel are important to understanding the plans?
Yeah, I do, yes. The streetscape image that shows the building in relation to neighboring homes feels very misleading. There is small print at the bottom that says that the picture is not to scale and it's not accurate. Its numbers may be correct, but the visuals completely misrepresent. So it looks smaller than it would actually be in relation to the context of nearby homes. And the plans disregard the number one priority of community feedback, which was about scale. We just asked for the scale to match surroundings. This building is oppressively giant. I've read the master plan. I'm a novice, but I've read it, and it discusses the aim to preserve pattern, scale, and continuity of form in rows over 50 years old, and ours is 129. The setback, the front setback, is also a problem. Their porch, the front porch, begins where mine ends. If you've ever been down my block, you've probably noticed my front porch garden. I work from home, so I'm there a lot, and I sit on that porch. I keep it green, I keep it blooming. These plans mean that my entire front porch would be cloaked in shadow. No light, no flowers. It would destroy my experience of home. And never mind that it has a rooftop, so.
Okay, and how about the height?
The height of the proposed has been adjusted to make it look like it fits in. There's no way that the 4-story building would be more or less equal in height to a neighboring 2.5-story, especially since it sits uphill, exacerbating the extent that it would tower over and dwarf over my home. I'm a designer, so I do have experience looking at these types of things, but when you look at the drafts, the plans, anyone can figure this out just by looking with the naked eye. It just doesn't add up. The roof depictions are also off. Their roof is a 40-foot tall, solid rectangular box, versus neighboring homes that are 30 feet at their tallest receding gabled peak. Those gables, the drawing misrepresents our roof to look like it's a solid box like theirs, as if the whole front side is filled in with the building, where in reality, our gables and our setback cross gables actually allowed a lot of light, air, and open space all around them. So this was troubling me, and I decided to take the same information from the plans and make my own images. These reflect my attempt to understand and visualize the proposal in relation to surroundings. I'd like to walk you through my thought process.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Yep, it caught. It was
Cynthia. What is this?
If you go to Adobe.
I just hit it. I just made it go down. So, like, is it this? I just collapsed it, so it's one of these. It's still open. It's still open. It's just one of.
I'm not going to.
Oh, so it's not that one.
Yeah, it's number 1. No, it's number 3. Streetscape
But how do I
study.
make it take the whole? Hold on, let's get rid of that. Hold on, let's get rid of that.
Go to the green one.
The green one. We'll maximize. We need to maximize. Oh, there.
There you go. Okay.
But then how do I get the pages?
Just go.
Oh, the toggle. Okay.
Shireen, before we go through this, would you just explain what it is?
Yeah, this is an image that was taken directly from the plans from the developer's streetscape study.
Okay, and then what are the images after this? What are those?
Oh, so it's my trying to understand and process what the plans entail.
Can I ask a couple questions about the exhibit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is this the exact image taken from the plans that were submitted?
Yes, this
There
is.
were no additional properties shown on the streetscape?
Oh, I think that at some point there were the 2 properties that are sort of darker in color at 124, which is the darker one on the right, and then 128, the one that we're talking about tonight on the left. And these 2 projects were sort of presented to my community as like a collection of projects, like a collection of 2. So at some point, I think that the 124 property dropped off of the plans, but I put it back in exactly to scale how it was.
Okay, but there were no additional properties beyond this group of 6, no additional buildings shown.
Not to my knowledge, no, I
I
think,
would like the record to reflect that that is inaccurate as the plan.
I mean, I don't have those in front of me. I don't have those in front of me, but this is the part that's concerning to me because this is the row of homes that we're talking about.
Ms. McCormick, I understand, but if you're going to enter something into evidence and claim that
Okay.
it's taken directly off the plans,
Right,
I just
right.
want to be clear.
Okay, so let me just try to clarify then. Is this is a composite image where you used plans for 120 that were presented for 124 Glenwood, and you combined the streetscape that you had on that one with the streetscape
Yeah.
that we had for 128
Completely to
Glenwood.
scale,
I
yeah.
need one speaker, could you finish that?
Yeah, so it's a
The streetscape that you had on that with the streetscape,
on 128 Glenwood on this application.
Yes.
So again, and not that I'm objecting to entering this as an exhibit, I just want to be clear, this is your compilation of demonstrative examples of what was taken off multiple sets of multiple plans.
Yes, this is my trying to visualize the proposal.
Okay, I have no problem with that, I just
Okay.
wanted that to be clear.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So first we have images that are from the developer's streetscape study, and that's this picture. And then I wanted to show how proposed infill, to the best of my knowledge, would actually look. So if it didn't go to the next slide. Oh, is it? Huh, it's not proceeding. Yeah, I tried both.
I'm sorry, one more question as you're figuring that out
Oh,
about the
there.
slides to come. So the
Yeah.
slides to come.
Oh, I didn't.
Just to confirm, the slides to come are completely based on your interpretation of what might be, not based
Yes,
on scale plan?
based on me looking at the plans and to the best of my knowledge, making my interpretation of the plans.
Okay.
The same as your client did. So,
To be clear, that's not correct. My client utilized
okay,
proper math and scale that was testified to at a prior meeting.
okay.
Now I need to clarify because actually there's a notation on the plan saying they're not necessarily accurate or to scale.
Yeah,
He
it's in the bottom
explained- he
corner.
I
explained
need one
what-
speaker.
He explained what was utilized, but put that note there correctly to indicate that it was not a proper scale, but it was under laser and topographic and maps that are available through the city of Jersey City.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. So that note is there in the bottom corner about it not being to scale, but that is the image. And then, here. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, I just have to, okay, it was on the wrong page. So here's the first image. Then I wanted to show how the infill would actually look, in my opinion, bigger. Now, let's adjust the roofs of the surrounding structures so that they would be seen from street view, not as solid gray boxes. So if you look at the roof lines, that's what you would see from the roof, from the street. Now, let's omit the various measurement lines because they're sort of boxing in what is open space gabled roofs. Oh, it looks quite different, doesn't it? There's mine. There's mine.
Okay, and you're showing the two infill projects as significantly taller? What made you interpret things that way?
Yeah, just looking at the plans and the scale, the numbers seemed like they were right, but the scale looked off.
Okay, what numbers though?
The height, the numbers for the height.
Okay, all right. Ben, do you have any objection to my moving this exhibit into evidence?
Now that I have an explanation of what it is, I actually do have an objection. I mean, it is, and don't take this the wrong way, it's a very nice art project. but
Thank
it's a
you.
glorified art project that has no basis in architecture, no license behind it. So I have no objection if the board would like to consider it as an art project, but I do want to put on the record, my objection would be to giving it any expert weight whatsoever, as I think this board, and I don't mean to pontificate, but this board is very well aware that my client is bound by the scaled drawings that have been drawn, and any construction, should this application be approved, would have to follow the plans that are signed and sealed by licensed professionals. So I just want to make that clear. But if you'd like to enter it for the sake of showing us what you came up with, then I don't even know if I should
Yeah,
have an objection.
I mean, it's not being presented as an architectural rendering. It's being presented as a novice, a lay person's
In that case, the only
visualization.
So rather, let's stop. Rather than debate it like a ping pong, we take it for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so, so now, okay, let's move on. So, now I know you wanted to talk about the depth of
depth.
the project.
Yes, the depth. The rear setback, my backyard is 74 feet, and the backyard of this proposal is half of that at 37 because the building is way too deep. It would destroy our backyard experience. So currently, I can see my neighbor's kids playing in their backyard. They call me auntie. Up the street, I can see the Edwards Riley household barbecuing. We wave, we say hi. I can see Miss India and Edwards on her front porch. We wave, we say hello. And this building would be creating a wall of building, destroying that experience that William Coffin intended for the house to have, for the row of houses to have. It would create this wall sandwiching between our homes, boxing us in, and interrupting the cohesion of the enclave. It would destroy the light and darken the backyard. It would deprive air, light, and open space and cast us in our backyard in shadow all day. Additionally, there's side windows, and the entire structure's side windows are all imbalanced, located on only one side of the house, the side that faces mine. So obviously that would destroy any semblance of privacy.
Okay, and do you have other concerns about the plans?
Yeah, the number one priority in community feedback was a smaller building to match the statements made by the Historic Preservation Office's letter that future infill should match the scale and the density of surrounding homes.
Sorry, what Historic Preservation Office letter?
Okay, that was my next question. Thanks, Ben. So would you explain what you're referring to?
Thank you both. There's a letter of significance that the Jersey City Historic Preservation Department wrote, dated August 19th, 2022, about 124 Glenwood, and that its future infill should match that of surrounding homes within the 1895 historic enclave of Mayhew Terrace cottages. We think that since we are within the enclave or series of homes, that information, that letter applies to 128 Glenwood too. Where is that letter? Here's the letter.
Yeah. And
so the memo recognizes what is special about our streetscape, and it makes recommendations of the scale of infill that should be allowed. This letter recommending that everything should be, anything future infill should be the same scale, it gave us hope.
okay. And Ben, do you have any objection to our entering this memo into evidence?
I do, for a number of reasons, and I won't belabor it, but are you aware that determinations of significance have been held by the courts to, when seeking to demolish, to be unconstitutional?
I know there was a court decision about our ordinance, but I think this, this memo says what it says.
Okay, but you are aware
Yeah.
that it was determined that these memos are, unless there's a property located in a historic district or designated as historic, that it is not proper to require an applicant to submit for a determination of significance. You are aware?
I understand the ordinance was stricken down in a court decision, but I don't think that invalidates the fact that this memo exists and was posted on the public portal as part of your application materials when you submitted your application for 124 Glenwood. No, for 124 Glenwood. It's a public document. It was part of the public record on an application that you represented the same developer on. So I don't know how you could be objecting.
So again, I don't object to it being treated for what it's worth, just like with the last exhibit. I just think that Ms. Agianis, as you do seek to enter exhibits, I do think it would be a little bit more appropriate to qualify them for what they are. Because again, and I'm not suggesting at all anybody's trying to mislead, but my concern here is that this is for a project that is not for this property, and it was done at a time when this was the process in Jersey City, which is found to be unconstitutional by court. So I have no objection to its inclusion. It is certainly a public document, but I just think that it, again, should be qualified for what it is.
Yeah.
Now that all that has been said, do you want to know what I think?
Yes, I
I
do.
don't think it
Yes.
has any relevance to this.
Okay, all right.
I don't, first of all, I don't think that that this law, whatever Mr. Wine said, is unconstitutional. I don't think that's accurate.
That's right.
But
yeah.
I don't know what the significance of this paper is on your particular property. I haven't read it, but it's keyed to 124, so.
Okay,
why
can
don't
we just
leave
mark
at
it for purposes of identification as opposed to moving it into evidence?
that? And what good would that do us?
In case this ends up in court later.
Sure, you want to mark
Okay,
it for
I guess
identification, but we're not
03.
considering it, so.
That,
what good is
I understand. Okay, so can you take that off?
Are we marking this for identification? Let the record be clear.
I wouldn't think so. I say no.
Okay, all right.
The letter talks about the surrounding
Let's-
streetscape.
Well, we're okay, we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
accept your decision. Okay.
Thank you.
For what it's worth.
Previous exhibit, did we actually mark that? Because I didn't hear any marking.
02.
The drawing?
02.
You did, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on, and maybe we should take this down since the board doesn't
Okay.
want to look at it.
Sure.
Okay. So, okay, and there were some decorative changes. How did you feel about those decorative changes
There were
to
decorative.
the project?
Yeah, they met with us twice, and after we showed up at some of those board meetings and begged for a meeting. And we do appreciate them meeting with us, thank you. And we do appreciate the attempt at trying to make them fit. But honestly, you could put the cosmetics on and it's still out of scale. They're just giant boxes, so.
Okay, and is there anything else you would like the commissioners to understand?
Yes, please. This is not a vacant lot. It was not a vacant lot. It was precious, rare green space within the city. The so-called vacant lot was occupied by a community garden filled with volunteers, students, people from the church up the street, affiliated with the university, people like myself. And we grew crops to benefit refugees and immigrants. It was the heart of the block. It signified hope, joy, and abundance. And, in an area where the census tract reveals lower income, it played a meaningful role in our new home being our dream home, a home that we have worked so hard and saved so much to make happen. We love this city, we love this neighborhood, and we set down our roots here, we invested here, and we even started the McKinley Square Community Board, the MSCB, a new neighborhood group, in the face of this proposed detriment. We have, through that, come together through adversity, but we've already improved our neighborhood so much by connecting different neighborhood groups with each other, by connecting with the special improvement districts and the West District Police, with St. Peter's. We now have regular meetings with St. Peter's when before there was no relationship there. We've established close relationships with our elected officials. And, it's Black History Month. The JCLC uncovered significant Black women's history in this enclave of homes. you know, we connect community. Lincoln Park North and MSCB have started a whole campaign for hybrid meetings because we want inclusivity. We want Kayla, who works, you know, as a flight attendant, to be able to attend and have freedom of speech at these meetings. And we also want India and Edwards to be able, 105 years old, to be able to still participate in hybrid meetings.
Okay, great. So, thanks, Mrs. McCormick.
Yeah, just a couple
Okay.
of questions. So,
I just wanted to say a few more. Sorry. I just think it's really sad that we lost 2 of the original 6 houses, and the community feels ripped apart. And, you know, this project is to the detriment of our neighborhood. We're rooted here and we care. We're about building bridges, not walls. And, you know, it's sad that the developer doesn't seem to care about the community vision with the out-of-scale structure. Never mind all the detriment that all my neighbors spoke about already. We want...
for a second, I'm sorry, this is not
Sure.
public comment. I'm sorry, I don't want to object, but at this point, these are just comments, it's not really testimony.
We're here because we want meaningful growth. That's what we're looking for.
So but I think the
Thank
board's
you.
they've heard a lot
Thank
from
you.
a lot of different people. So let's bring this to a conclusion this evening. Did you have any questions? Yeah.
I won't go long on this, but just a couple. So first, would it surprise you to know that the bulk requirements within the U district would allow for this building depth to technically extend all the way to the end of the property? There's no rear yard setback requirement. Would that surprise you?
Would it surprise me?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it would.
So in other words, it would not shock you to know that despite the fact that you were discussing this being 45 feet setback versus yours being 75 feet setback, in fact, we could construct a building under the university district zoning that extends 100% of the property depth.
It was my impression that when the planner spoke at the last meeting, that it was arrived at that it wouldn't be possible given the setbacks and the buffers required.
Actually, that was not the testimony. It would be possible to extend to the rear. There is no rear yard setback requirement. There are coverage requirements.
Is there a question?
Well,
I don't
asking
understand.
If you would be surprised to know that. Would you be surprised to know that 4 stories is permitted for this property as well?
I don't feel comfortable answering that question. I'm not.
How about a question this way? Do you know that there could be 4 stories in the university zone on this property?
I'm aware that the zone allows that. I don't think it's right for this property.
Do
All right.
you know, to use Mr. LaPaglia's language, do you know that all of the other smaller residences that you're referring to in the enclave, with the exception of yours being in the R3 zone, would also permit for 4 stories to be developed?
Can you repeat the question?
Do you know that the R3 zoned properties, which are all of these except for our subject property and your property, would permit 4-story development?
That all of the R3 properties, I mean, it's a mix of different.
All of the R3 properties. You testified so eloquently before about how this is a mix of U-zone properties and R3.
I'm just trying to understand your question.
Would you be shocked to know that the R3, which is the other properties you referenced, the other in your little enclave, right, do permit 4-story development?
We believe that this building is too large for this space, given the circumstances and its surrounding homes, some of which are zoned university.
Ms. McCormick, that does not answer my question.
Well, you asked her if she was shocked.
And then I asked
She's,
you.
she's not going to be shocked. Do you know? If you don't know, tell us. If you do know,
I'm aware of what R3 allows.
okay, that's good.
All right.
I'm also aware that this is not R3.
Okay, so that's why I asked you first, do you know what the U-zone allows in terms of height?
I'm somewhat familiar with the U zone. I've become more familiar than ever in the last year.
I think I've made my point
Yes.
fairly clear. Okay, you had mentioned that you don't feel that the 3-foot being proposed on the side of the residential building is appropriate for fire department access, is appropriate for general building separation. Am I accurately paraphrasing your testimony?
The public commenter who spoke to that was a fireman. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's been covered by my planner and also some of the public.
But you brought it up, so I'm asking you, was that in fact paraphrasing your testimony?
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
The 3 feet, your testimony, and I can ask Ms. Lombardozzi to read it back if you want, but I'm not looking to do that. Was your testimony something to the effect of the 3-foot side yard setback or buffer separation is not appropriate for fire code or building code?
I think it's one of many features that's not appropriate of the proposal for this lot.
Okay, so really my last question on this topic, would you be shocked to know that 3 feet is the standard for detached residential development in Jersey City? In fact, 2 feet on one side and 3 feet on the other.
I'm not shocked.
Okay, so is it fair to assume that the fire department does not take issue with all of Jersey City development?
Yeah. it's-
I feel like always and never are,
don't know,
that's sort of
ma'am, do you?
extreme.
One.
This is a specific case in a specific lot.
So it is your non-expert opinion that 3 feet separation is not appropriate for fire code on this particular property?
The proposal is not appropriate on this property. That's my opinion.
For fire code, that was my question. That's what your testimony was. If you can't answer, that's okay, but then.
I can answer. It's not appropriate. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, at this point, I will rest on this witness.
Can we stop it at that,
Yeah,
Cynthia?
yes, yes, we
Because I
can.
see you're
Yes,
about to open your mouth to.
I'm happy
Oh,
to.
she said she
I'm
was
happy.
ending. Cynthia said she was ending.
Yes, I'm happy to stop.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, and since we had public comment and closed it out at the last meeting, there'll be no public comment at this
We
time.
don't need that. So, Cynthia, you're finished?
Yes, we have finished presenting our objector
Your fact
case.
witnesses, yes, thank you.
Okay,
So now we're left with,
Oh, I have a quick summation, but
you want to hear from staff first, or do you want to sum up? What would you like to do?
I don't know. What's a,
okay, we normally hear if there are any comments from the commissioners, and then we usually hear from staff. So do the commissioners have any comments at this time?
Probably want to say a few things, but after
Yeah.
the staff
Okay.
does their things, because they may
Tanya?
be hearing the same thing twice.
Okay, Tanya, do you have any comments?
Was there a closing? I'm sorry, that's what I was missing.
A closing?
that what you were
The
gonna-
objector has finished her case,
Okay,
Right.
I wasn't
and
sure.
so now we're up to you, Tanya, staff.
Okay, so I had a report that was uploaded. It's dated 8/10, but I'm sure that I uploaded it a little after that. You guys have not had the pleasure of going through this with me yet. You've only been having to deal with Francisco, so I apologize in advance. But let's talk about D variances. The D variances, which is just references the state legislation, the MLUL, 70D, that's all that it really means is like we're going to the area of where the land use law has the D variances. D variances are considered more substantial in their deviations from what the regulations of the zone are. And when you're looking at D variances, you're supposed to look at them with a little bit more scrutiny as to how they might impact the zone, the property, the surrounding properties, and the master plan. That's putting it just kind of like overall. But when we're looking at positive criteria for D variances, the D1, the use variance in particular, there's a couple things that you want to do. First, you want to see are the purposes of zoning advanced. Now, in the very beginning of the MLUL, there are a number of purposes of zoning that are listed, and that is really just saying the purposes of zoning. So when you hear a planner talk, they'll say, oh, it advances the purpose A, it advances purpose B. One that you'll hear a lot is purpose I, which just means aesthetic improvement, but that's one that you'll hear pretty frequently. The other is that, and this is important for use, is the site particularly suited to the property. And why this is separate for use is because when we're looking at other variances, D variances, you don't have to be as strict with them necessarily. You could say, does the use fit in the property? Can the property handle? But when it's a use variance, you have to say, is this site particularly suitable for for this property, for the use. And then you have to kind of also reconcile either why the zoning or the master plan didn't consider the use in the first place. And if the planner who was presenting made the case efficient enough, one, that you think it advances the purposes of zoning, you think that it is particularly suitable, that the site is unique, the situation is unique, and that granting that variance would not cause detriment either to the zone plan, the purpose of the zone plan, or the master plan. So that's just an overarching thing of what you're looking for in use variances. So I don't want to belabor because there's so much been said on the record, and I know most of you have read the transcripts. Just so you know, the university zoning, as far as I know, has been in place since at least 2000. I don't know if it was in place prior to that. Many of these properties were owned by St. Peter's, which was why it was zoned for university. I believe there's a couple of other cases before tonight, and then maybe next meeting, which will be in a similar situation, which is former St. Peter property that was sold. There were conversations, there's been conversations, probably since I've been working here, as to whether or not university should be rezoned, but it's always been more of a plan to have a master plan for the St. Peter's campus, not necessarily anything else. But when we did our master plan this last time, we looked at it and we met with St. Peter's, our consultants did at least, talking about how we could basically improve upon the university zoning, because there are some instances where there are single-family homes in the university district, and we needed to recognize the fact that even those single-family homes wouldn't be able to improve and expand because they wouldn't be permitted uses, and they'd have to seek expansion of non-conforming uses variances for 1-2 family homes. So we knew that there are some things that we kind of had to figure out how to fix, but the suggestion that was made in the master plan, I think mostly was about an overlay zoning, which was kind of to take into consideration that there was a mixture of smaller frame homes and then some larger buildings, whether those are apartment buildings or former dorm buildings. This block is actually pretty diverse. Across the street definitely are matching 2-3 frame story homes, but east and west, there are some larger apartment buildings as well. Some of them are zoned in the R3. I think actually it's all R3 or university zoning. So I know that maybe helps you, maybe doesn't help you. What I'm trying to provide is guidance for you for when you're making your decision. You're making it with established case law, established precedent for how you can decide on whether a use variance should be granted and some of the things you should be taking into consideration. So I did put on my report some conditions to consider if the application does get approved. I can read them in, or we could just, this report has been in the record for so many months. I don't know if I necessarily need to read them in, except to say if you read them and you accept, I'm fine with that.
I believe they were chiseled onto a stone when this report was written, but I take no exception to those conditions.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. So commissioners, do you have any comments that you would like to make before we take a vote?
Oh, hold on.
Well, I think the attorneys
sorry.
wanted to sum up, so to
Oh, I'm
speak.
sorry.
We can wait until
Okay.
after comment. I just want to make sure we don't skip the.
No,
So
you can
let's
sum
have
up.
the
Let's
co-
sum
let's
up
have the
and
sum
let's
up
move
first.
on. Yeah.
And then we'll decide.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wine wanted to have the last word, so I just thank you, everyone, for your time and your attention and keeping an open mind and listening to so many people. And I want to thank the community for attending and commenting. And I think it probably has not been lost on the board that the people who showed up and commented on January 25th are really, they're community members, and many of them are really like pillars of the community. And we had one of our council people here supporting the people on Glenwood, and we had councilperson's aide here also. So this is a special group of people. Glenwood is really a special place, and this is a special enclave of homes in the neighborhood within a neighborhood, as my client put it. So the applicant has the burden of proof, and I think everybody said what the applicant has to prove. And to me, they have to prove a lot of different things, but the key thing they have to prove is particular suitability. They have to prove that the proposed site is particularly suitable for the proposed use. And sometimes people get hung up on the word particular. It sort of sounds like planner kind of gibberish, but our planner used the word ideally, and I think that's kind of a good way to think about it. It has to be something that really is ideally suits this lot, what is being proposed. So reflecting back, the applicant's planner testified that the building was designed to be consistent with the R3 zone. And she was basically asking the board, and the applicant's lawyer has also asked the board to treat this lot as if it is in the R3 zone. And that really sounds an awful lot like zoning by variance. It's not proof of particular suitability saying, well, R3 is nearby, you should treat this like R3. So from my perspective, the applicant hasn't met its burden of proof. And at one point, the applicant's planner even testified, we're proposing a 4-family, which is a permitted use. It's not a permitted use. That's why they need a use variance. So it seems like she backtracked after that. But even Mr. Wine, in his questioning of Mrs. McCormick, when he's saying, well, would you be surprised to know we can do a 4-story? Well, you can't. You can't. That's why you're here getting a variance. And even if you were doing a university use, guess what? You have to have a 10-foot buffer on either side, which on a 25-foot wide lot leaves you with 5 feet of a buildable width. So you can't just put a university use on a larger, on this 25 by 100 or 140 foot lot without a variance. And you can't just put a 4-story residential building here without a use variance. So there's no entitlement to 4-story building here. Now, on the other hand, you heard from our planning expert, Colleen McGurk, and she talked about this concept of building typology and that certain building types work well on certain types of lots. And she talked about how this is a narrow, elongated lot, and it would lead to poor layout. It would lead to small side yards. And it doesn't work that well. This type of 4-story building doesn't work that well on this type of lot. A 25 by 100 lot, she thought it probably attached homes work better or a smaller scale building. So she said, she used the word shoehorned or shoehorning this large 4-story, 4-family building into a site that's too constrained to properly accommodate a building of this size. Now, what does the master plan say? The master plan, and Colleen McGurk specifically referenced a section called Urban Design Framework in our master plan. And there were 3 provisions of the master plan she mentioned. She said, or the master plan says, review that new development proposals should be reviewed for scale, typology, and architectural character. The master plan says that we need to consider, I guess collectively Jersey City needs to consider long-term impact of all new development on larger neighborhood, street life, and pedestrian movement. And then the master plan says, even though some buildings and neighborhoods may not be designated as historic, every attempt should be made to preserve them and reflect their unique architecture, scale, and character in neighborhoods. I just want to talk about the zoning. But think about those provisions of the master plan, because that will tell you, does this project substantially impair the master plan? Zoning, we're in the university zone. One of the purposes of the university zone is to preserve neighborhood stability. And our planning expert said, well, every time you try to stick a building that's double the size and much taller in between these smaller scale buildings, that's destabilizing the neighborhood. So this is a project that does not meet the purpose of the university zone. It destabilizes the neighborhood. Now residential quality of life is another purpose of the university zone. And I think you heard a lot of public comment. You heard my client's testimony that it's going to be tough for them to enjoy their front yard or their front sitting on the front porch. It's going to be tough for them to enjoy their backyard. I think one of the neighbors who lives next to the other project on 124, she used the word toxic and shrouded in shadow. So, and you heard everybody talk about how they feel that this is not going to be good for their quality of life. And a lot of the public comment, you heard there was like this sense of loss, like they lost the building that already got demoed. They're losing their garden. And what are they getting? They're getting something that they all agree does not fit in. I just wanted to talk about the buffer. There's this 10-foot buffer requirement in the university zone. And you heard sort of contrasting planner testimony. And I think the applicant's planner said, when it's a D1 use variance, that the tendency is to say that other variants are subsumed into that use variance. And her opinion was that, well, you only need the buffer when you're buffering a university use from a residential use. Now you have a residential use with a residential use. You don't need the buffer anymore. Our planner countered that, and she said, well, there's a logic to this buffer, which is that you want a more intense use, which this project will be. You want to buffer it from a less intense use. So her position was, you still need a buffer if you're going to put a 4-story tall building with 4 units and 11 bedrooms next to a smaller scale house. I think I'm anticipating what my counterpart may say, because we've talked a lot about the nature of compromise, and he feels his client's been very compromising, but he could talk about it himself. This community has already experienced a loss. They've come out in force to express how they feel about this project to the board. And I don't know that there is a great compromise here. I mean, I think a smaller building may work, but this one, it's nearly double the size. It's much taller. It's too big. It's too bulky. It's going to negatively impact the homes on the adjacent to them and the streetscape. So with that, I think I've covered all my points, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, as Ms. Hajianis so astutely put it, really nothing can be developed on this property without a variance. As she indicated, and she's correct, that by its very nature as a university zone, it does require a 10-foot buffer on each side, no matter what is constructed, by the language of the university zone. That's why we're here, because to develop a 5-foot wide building is obviously not developable. So no matter what we would propose, at the end of the day, we would be required variance relief. That's just something that I think is worth putting out. There was some talk about the design of the building, and I think, as Ms. Hajianis' clients had correctly indicated, this project has been going on for a long time, whereby we went back to the community formally with 2 separate submissions, but that was formally. We had discussed multiple different facade options, multiple different roof options, and we even did so through the councilman's office based on comments that we received back from Councilman Boggiano's office. So what you're seeing here this evening and 2 weeks ago was not developed in a vacuum with respect to facade design. We also reached out to city planning with respect to facade design and said there are design standards within your ordinance. Do you feel that we conflict with any of those? And if so, let's work on them. So this has been a very fluid project with respect to design, and I would ask the board respectfully to consider the design element perhaps a little bit separately than the actual use variance element, which is what we're here seeking tonight for the residential use on this property. Should the board have any comments when they go into deliberation about design, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, and I'll reiterate now, that's malleable. That is something we wanted to work with the community, and the design we came up with was based on the best feedback that we could ultimately garner between city planning and the community without substantially reducing the actual scope of our project. With that, I'd like to share a few words in closing. The variance before you this evening, as I said, is for a D1 use to change the underlying zoning of this property effectively from the U zone into a residential zoning use. Whether that is the R3, which makes the most sense, we believe, given its proximity and the remainder of the properties on the block that are not U-zoned, or whether, in fact, that's R1, which has been floated about and was floated about at community meetings. Nevertheless, even in the R1, the density would be the 4 units that we're ultimately proposing. Based on our lot size, the R1 has recognized, as of the new zoning ordinance, that it's a density-based calculation rather than a strict 1 to 2 family marker. And specifically in that instance, we would be permitted a 3-family building in the front with an accessory dwelling unit sitting right on the rear property line, just for some context. Additionally, calling this a use variance application is technical in nature. As you've heard from our planner, some of the uses that are actually permitted in the university zone are by definition residential. The dormitory uses, for those of you that went to college way back when, fraternity and sorority houses probably shouldn't have been residential, but a lot of people fall asleep in them anyways. So nevertheless, the U zone contemplates that residential use is something that can be appropriately had within the district. Obviously, we're here seeking the use variance because your ordinance defines dormitory use separately than straight residential. And that's why we're here this evening. No issues there. You've also heard from the objecting planner and attorney stating that this property is better suited to a 1 to 2 family residence. Under the municipal land use law, and I don't need to tell you this, this is more for me just getting this out there, we don't spot zone, and I think everybody knows that. We should not impose a different standard on this property than exists in the rest of Jersey City. As I mentioned, 4 units on this lot size, no matter which zone you're in, across the city, any zone that permits a lot of this size to have residential would be permitted 4 units on that property. We chose the R3 for obvious reasons given the remainder of the block. And that's why we developed the massing that we developed, which is still under the massing that is permitted both in the U zone and the R3. We've worked diligently for over a year to appease the neighbors. We've changed the architectural design multiple times, adding and removing features at their request. We even removed a bedroom from each unit and reduced the building depth by nearly 30 feet, resulting in a structure that is substantially smaller than what would be allowed, as I said, under the youth or R3 zoning. We've made these significant changes, but obviously, it's no secret you've heard that there are a number of neighbors who still don't feel that that is adequate. The master plan does state, and I'm quoting, "Beyond revisions to the U district, another zoning mechanism to explore would be the creation of a university overlay zone," as you've heard. The existing U district set a line where the campuses and where residential areas are. An overlay zone would allow the universities to continue to grow and improve facilities within a defined area surrounding the existing campus without rendering existing residential or other non-university uses non-conforming. This property is no longer owned by the university. As per the master plan, it's to the public benefit to allow it to be something that, from a use perspective, fits a lot more in cohesion with the surrounding university uses and the surrounding residential uses. The objecting planner and many members of the public had pointed out that the prior use on this property before it became vacant and then a community garden was in fact residential in nature. We do not know when the original house was demolished, and I believe Commissioner Shadid had brought that up, but it does further prove that a residential use, which is the variance we are asking for this evening, a residential use would be appropriate with the neighborhood makeup, and it would conform to the original aims of the zoning of this property. While solely speculation, the logical conclusion is that this lot was zoned U simply because it came under ownership of St. Peter's. The legal standard for use variance comes from the Medici case, and in order to justify that D1 use variance, the applicant needs to show site suitability, how it promotes the general welfare through the positive and negative criteria analysis, and that there's no substantial impairment of the zone plan or master plan. Looking at the surrounding properties, we can easily meet the site suitability standard. Looking at the surrounding properties, we can easily meet the site suitability standard, as every property on this side of Glenwood is a residential use. 2 properties to the left is a very large student housing structure, and to the right are the R3 zoned properties, which have been talked about at length. The site in question is sufficiently sized to accommodate the proposed residential use, as evidenced by the lack of any bulk variance necessitated under the R3 standards. You've already heard from our planner as to the positive criteria and the lack of negative criteria of the project, and I would remind the board that the bar is substantial impairment to the zone plan and master plan and substantial detriment to the public good. There's also the question of the better planning alternative than the permitted use. As you've heard from our planner, as well as Ms. McGurk, the objecting planner, this lot is undersized for many of the institutional uses contemplated by the U-Zone. For example, student housing or fraternity sorority building, which would allow construction of a building of 4 stories and 40 feet with 60% building coverage and an unlimited number of bedrooms. Admittedly, as has been discussed, that use would require a 10-foot buffer between any U use and a residential use. However, that standard, as has been testified to, is there to give sufficient separation between the expected nuisance of a higher density student use and the surrounding residential. As explained in the Paleo case, bulk requirements are intrinsically linked to the permitted uses in the zone. The buffers we are proposing are appropriate between 2 residential uses, as evidenced by meeting the standards that would apply in all the R zones. We are proposing a much more modest structure with 12 bedrooms and 40% building coverage. This is undoubtedly a better planning alternative for the neighborhood and a better match with the zone plan. And to this, there has really been no opposing testimony with respect to our justifications. Despite the objections that ask this property to be left vacant or developed with a 1 or 2 family home, every single residential zone in Jersey City deems it appropriate to develop this size property with multifamily. As far as leaving it empty, this would be inappropriate, as indicated in the case of Kramer versus the Zoning Board of Seagirt, where the courts decided that if the permitted use on a property offers no economic utility whatsoever to the owner, that is itself deemed a special reason to grant a variance. And leaving it as green open space, I think we can all agree would do that. I will close with the following. Our appearance at the Zoning Board of Adjustment this evening is the opportunity to properly plan this site for decades to come. It is our position that a use identically aligned to the surrounding R3 zoning standards is the way for this board to get it right. We hope you agree, and ultimately that you vote to approve our application. So I thank the board for their time over the last 2 weeks, city planning for its time over the last, at this point, close to a year and a half. And I do thank the public for their input, because I do believe that it really helped design the project that you ultimately see before you this evening. So thank you, and I would respectfully request approval of our application.
Thank you. At this time, do the commissioners have any comments?
Yeah, I actually have a few questions and some comments. Tanya, if this were a fraternity house or sorority house and was built like a house, is that 10-foot requirement on either side still there if it was like a house like this?
Yeah, the 10-foot buffer is for residential, and I believe on both sides are residential.
But for any kind of building, one story, 2-story, 3-story, or building, like a dorm building?
It just says residential.
So it's kind of vague.
Yeah,
at the very least, in terms of the kind of house.
we've even treated mixed use. We have a similar situation on Palisade, where it's a mixed use ground floor commercial with the upper residential. And there's a residential buffer, and we've still said the residential buffer applies.
Because I'm trying to grasp the university 10 foot on either side. I could totally see it if there was a dense building, multiple dormitories because of obviously getting out in case of an emergency or fire. But if it was a house like a frat house or even a private house that somebody offered for university students and it was built like this, like a house with that 10-foot buffer, just doesn't sound like it makes sense. But you answer that, so that's that. It sounds, we talk about borders in the news and everything else, but you have on one side the R3, over the other side the university zone.
Yeah.
And when you look at everything that's been presented, I mean, the common thing is 4 stories is there, and this from my opinion. I mean, 4 stories is allowable either way. However, in terms of the neighborhood, the university purpose there, obviously it would be more beneficial if there was a residential component there. If I was a neighbor living there, I would want a residential thing there because I'm right there. I won't want this university thing and then another residential on the other side of that. That's really a wall if that happens. So in terms of the height and looking at staff's notes on university zoning, what's required and what's being proposed, a lot of criteria is met. But one issue I think that's been coming up is there's still uncomfortability with the design. I know the commissioners have mentioned this last time. I think a lot of it makes sense in terms of, I think everyone thinks there should be a residential component there. It just makes sense. The fact that it was a park in the past, I mean, I wish it could still be a park. That conversation probably had to happen with St. Peter's before they sold it. At this point, it becomes something much more complicated for that to happen and costly. Because obviously the minute something happens here and we approve something, the value of that goes up, and as a result of that, it becomes much more expensive at the public's, in the public pocketbook. Still leaves us with at least me, and I know some other commissioners, it still leaves us with the issue of design. I know Commissioner Coyle, Chairperson Coyle, mentioned once before about in some of these presentations, we see more of a visual graph, like an artist, almost as if we're looking at a photograph as opposed to a drawing. And obviously the drawings were used by both sides here a little bit, making it bigger, making it smaller, and it made it a little more complicated. And sticking to the purpose of why we're here, I think you met a lot of what you needed to meet in terms of what had to be said, but there's still some uncomfortability with this design. And I think, if there was a way to see something, more visual, and we see other architects bring it in, so I know it's doable. Maybe it'll make us feel make me feel a little better. I'm sure maybe some of the other commissioners. I think everyone vetted whatever they needed to vet in this whole thing so far, and I think there's a lot of common stuff. Everybody wants a home there. People worry about their neighborhoods, the size, a little bit this, a little bit that. You do have a right, the owner of the property has a right to build under certain circumstances, what zoning permits, but there's what you could do, and then there's what you should do. And that's how we work things, though we try to work things out as best we can. So I would just like to, and this is my saying, I think much of this is sort of like my mind's made up on, but I still feel uncomfortable with the design a little bit. And I would feel more comfortable if we had another chance. And we got to this point now. There's nothing else to talk about. We did everything, I think, at this point. Just to talk about the design a little bit. Maybe there's a way that some things could be tweaked and changed a little bit, just to make people a little more comfortable, maybe more so. But I just wanted to say that, and I need to understand a little bit about that 10-foot buffer, but you answered that for me. Zoning probably should have been changed in the past, and this should have been dealt with a while ago to protect and maybe turn it all into R3 zones, or to divert it once it's sold into something automatically, like a sunset kind of thing, just to preserve the houses that are there, because those houses should stay there. And I would advise you to work on that ASAP to make sure these things don't happen going forward. But we dealt with the cards we're dealt with. So just trying to hopefully see if there's a way that we get one more bite at just making this even a little bit better and a little more palatable for, us up here. Otherwise, decisions have to be made just upon what we have right now. So just want to let you know that.
And Mr. Zablicki, I thank you. The only thing I will put in the record, and I know you're in comment, but I do believe that we did enter a rendering into the exhibits. But as I said at the beginning of my closing, if there were specific design elements you wanted to see, I don't think it's subjective, but I don't think we take any offense to that or objection to that.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have any other comments? Okay, Tanya, I think we're ready for a vote.
Anybody make a motion? We don't have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can someone please make a motion to vote on case Z22-089?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve KZ 22-089 as presented to the board this evening.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Tanya? Please make
Okay.
sure your mics are on.
Yep, everybody make sure your mics are on. On the motion to approve, I assume that's with conditions, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Commissioner Barron?
No.
You got your mic on?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle?
No.
Commissioner Shadid?
No.
Better turn that mic on. Commissioner Zablicki?
As I said, if we didn't have the design ability to look at this just a little bit more, then I have to vote no.
Okay. Commissioner Allen?
I agree with Commissioner
Zablicki.
Zablicki, excuse me. I need water. Zablicki.
I have trouble, man.
No. I agree with Commissioner Zablicki. If we had a different design or something that made the public happy, this would be different, but I'm a no.
Vice Chair Rujo?
I say no, but I agree with Zapikli. We definitely need something different, a little more lively, a little more in tune with the rest of the housing. So like that, it doesn't stand out as much. Maybe a couple of more pastel colors. I don't know, something. But I say no.
And Chairman Coyle?
No.
So the motion fails. No in favor, 7 didn't, no.
So,
None in favor, 7, I don't know what I'm saying. The motion failed. 7 voted no, 0 voted yes, no abstained. Nobody abstained.
Sure. So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Butchered that.
And I thank the board for their time, I really do. The comments that I heard, at least from the board members now, really for the first time, and that's to no fault of the board members, I understand this is the process, but really, there were a lot of comments about design, and with respect, and I've done this before at other boards, and I don't see, legally it's permissible, so I will defer to the board and I will ask, and then I can follow up with Mr. LaPaglia. I would just ask, if the issue is really comes down in a lot of ways to design, there's an issue of coming back with something similar that is just a different design. There's an issue of res judicata, and I don't want to be in a situation whereby the board, we come back with a slightly different design, maybe the board is happy with, but they don't have the ability to actually hear the
Wouldn't
application.
that be mine and your decision as to whether?
Sure.
it's
So where
substantially
I'm going with
different?
this, sorry,
Don't talk over one another. Go ahead.
I was talking, he talked over me.
I did.
I was saying that wouldn't that be a question for you or I in planning? You bring a design and we decide whether it's substantially different? Wouldn't that be where we're going?
It would be. It would be. And so what I would respectfully request in that vein is an option, and this is available, to reconsider the application rather than filing and starting from scratch and getting back in the queue. For the sake of judicial efficiency, if we could reconsider, and we will certainly continue to work via city planning and Mr. LaPaglia, if he's interested, on perhaps a new design that we can then present to the board.
Well, let's put it this way. You have the public here who's already moaning about that. I don't know whether we can reconsider something without knowing what we're reconsidering.
Absolutely.
So this has to be a team effort with Ms. Hajianis, the public, planning, me, and you, and then we decide what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay?
I would just like to reserve that as my request, but I thank you for your time, and we'll certainly work with Mr. LaPaglia and Ms. Hajianis and Ms. Marione to hopefully get
Thank
back
you.
here quickly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now Bridget needs a break.
We'll take how many, you need 10 minutes at least, Bridget? 10, 15? 10-minute break. Joseph?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Stephen Joseph for the applicant again. Dennis is going to get set up, and he has a laptop. He's going to plug it in so everybody can see everything this time. 104 Glenwood Avenue. This is located on Glenwood Avenue in the University Zone. I'm sorry. Trying to...
Can I ask a question? Why are there no computer, like, we're not getting projected on the screen or things of that sort? I mean, this is difficult for us to...
No, the laptop's not connected yet. We have everything on
You
the
are
laptop.
going to
Yeah.
do that, though?
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
I'm just in the way right now.
Okay.
All right, so this is it's an existing 4-story building, which the applicant desires to renovate and convert into a multifamily dwelling. Was formerly used by the university for various different purposes, and before the university used it, it was a multifamily apartment building. The building will have 21 dwelling units. 2 of those units are going to be restricted as affordable housing. One of them is going to be a 3-bedroom unit at a very low income level. No expansion of the building at all is being proposed. Existing building, existing square footage. The building's not changing in that regard. We are doing rehabilitation to the building. So we did receive a letter from the Historic Preservation Officer that says the building is historically significant. The plans that you're going to see tonight were reviewed by the Historic Preservation Officer.
7-7.
And a letter was issued on February 8th, 2024, that confirms the historic officer reviewed the plans and the proposed work appears to be consistent with the rehabilitation of historically significant buildings outside of historic districts. In order to accomplish all of this, obviously need a use variance. It's not a university use. It's going to be a multifamily apartment building, and we need a C variance for the location of the bicycle parking. Because of the nature of the existing building, we're locating the bicycle parking outside in the rear, not inside of the building. Let's bring up Dennis, get him sworn in, and he'll walk you through the plans.
You know, Mr. Joseph, I was outside for a moment. We didn't mark your notices, did we?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, this was carried many, many times, actually. We do need to mark notices into.
Yeah. So we have them,
evidence.
Bridget, his affidavit, proof of service, notice of publication. So we'll mark that as A1 for this application.
If you want to bring it up here, Dennis.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, Mr. Joseph.
Mr. Davino has appeared in front of this board many times.
Yes, we recognize his expertise.
Thank
We
you.
assume his license is still in good order?
Yes, it is.
Great.
And if the
Thank
board
you.
would just bear with us a couple minutes while Dennis pulls everything up and make sure the connection is working. Shut that off for a minute.
This is going to come up here in a minute.
Gonna write a book after the end of this. What I was saying, I wrote a little note to Tanya. I said, Tanya, do you think it's appropriate that we ask for a resolution to approve? She said, no.
All right.
I said, I didn't think so, but I wasn't paying attention when you said that. You always said that? Yeah, I don't. You have to somehow sometimes look to my right, look to your right, and look to make sure I'm awake. No. How did you get off your cone? Yeah, but don't forget, just because you're saying you make a motion to approve, you could vote against it. Yeah. We're just moving it along. As you can tell by 7-0 against it.
Okay. If you hit it, I think it'll stop, so we'll just keep it.
No. Yeah.
Be sworn?
You're on the lesson. You know.
Believe it or not, mouse store.
I can't open this one. No. Yeah, what's historic? I don't know. I lost. I can't open whatever I'm supposed to open. How much?
21.
How many dorm rooms are there now?
Okay, I think we're ready. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm ready.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state and spell your full name for the record.
Dennis Michael Davino, Dennis, Michael, Davino, DEV as in Victor, INO. Thank you. Well, again, thank you. I want to thank the board for hearing our application. So as Mr. Joseph indicated, that this property is in the U zone and actually sandwiched between two R3s. Here we go again. So the two R3 buildings on either side are actually 6-story multifamilies. This is, I wanted to make sure I put the building facade, the building photograph up there so we can all see and reference
This is a six-story, and on the opposite side is another six-story multifamily. Building, from the historic records that we obtained, was initially designed and built in the 1920s. For a 100-year-old building, the building has fared very, very well.
Sorry, Dennis.
Want me to start over? Was it recorded, or should we just?
I'm here.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Built in the 1920s, you could tell it's a Art Deco style building. Art Deco is noted for a lot of symmetrical styles. It used a lot of large vertical masses in order to identify specific elements, such as a main entrance. So you could see in this particular building how the Deco style was conducted in the masonry use. There was a lot of repeated patterns in Deco, and you can tell again from. Let me get over to here. You can see a lot of repeated patterns and brickwork in the Deco style structures. This particular building was really very ornamental brick, very elegant brickwork. The reliefs of the brick were done at the windows and under the windows. You can see actually at the very top and underneath the first floor window, the brickwork is substantial. There are dentils that they were used, and you can see again at the main entrance how the vertical, large vertical components identify.
I'm sorry, can you just expand it a little?
Okay, how's that?
Or you can put it in slideshow mode if that's easier, whatever.
So, like a lot of brick buildings in Jersey City, this, I believe, falls within that category of iconic. I live in Jersey City. We all live in Jersey City. We drive these roads on a daily basis, and we're amazed at the craftsmanship of the brickwork that went on in the 1920s. So, moving on, we got approval. We got actually the first historic significant letter, April 28th, 2022, with historic. So we have been working on this project for quite some time to get it before the board. You could blow this up right here. This was, again, a St. Peter's property, Hennington Hall, I believe they called it. It was various different uses. The building was, when it was originally designed and constructed, it was actually designed and constructed as a multifamily building, which when we go through the floor plans, you can actually see how the individual floor plans of the individual units are very similar to what the floor plans are that we're using, because the way that it was initially laid out, you can tell the building was built and designed and constructed as a multifamily. We met with the community board several times. I think we met most of their concerns. There was I think maybe 2 or 3 pages. This particular building, as you know, we have other, the applicant has other buildings that they're purchasing from St. Peter's. This one had very few comments. It's the lot coverage is 70% right now. I think we're going to 74% only because that front area the vegetated area that's in the front is going to actually be converted to allow light and air to come into the basement, will be converted to a patio area. The other percentage is the additional percentage is the pad for the outdoor bicycle storage. Quickly, a couple of comments that I believe are from the community board that are worth noting is one was parking. You can tell that there's no place to put parking in the building. It's, as I said, it's 70+% lot coverage. So parking, unfortunately, and as Mr. Joseph indicated, that I think we're exempt from parking because we are putting two affordables in the building. One affordable is a 2-bedroom, and the other is a 3-bedroom. Another comment from community was bird-friendly windows. There's a couple of different ways to try to protect birds from, or try to stop birds from flying into glass. One would be interior window treatments. Another is they actually have glass now that has textures to it. Additional mullions in windows stop birds from flying in. So bird friendly, basically what we did is we added a note, and that we will, when we get to the construction document phase, we would make sure that all the windows that we use are bird friendly. The other comment, I believe, was pollinator friendly vegetation, so we added that note to our drawings. The variances that we're seeking, as again Mr. Joseph indicated, is a use variance because we are in the U zone, and we are, proposing a multifamily, and the variance for the bikes, not putting them inside. I think it's better these days not to put bikes on the inside. One of the comments, I believe, from traffic was they wanted to see a detail of what that bike's, a detail of that. So we are proposing 21 units, 29 bathrooms, 2 studios, 11 one-bedrooms, 7 two-bedrooms, and I mentioned 1 three-bedroom. The 2 bedrooms, the studios average 330 square feet, the 1 bedroom's 575, the 2 bedrooms 830, and the 1 bedroom is 945 square feet. The next slide is the site plan. You could see that we are proposing 2 new street trees in the front. There is some substantial repair work on retaining walls on either side of the property because there are some large, unfortunately, mature trees that are damaging retaining walls. So in order to maintain the grade change from this piece of property here to this 4.5 foot walkway on the side of the building is probably about 3.5 feet, and which is held back by retaining walls. Those retaining walls are damaged, so they would have to be repaired. We have a 10-foot vegetated buffer in the rear. The rear yard is existing rear yard. We're not changing. It's 30 feet. 10 feet of that 30 will be a substantial vegetated buffer. You can see in this slide where the bike rack will be. This is an interesting, obviously can't see it in this slide. I wish I had been able to give you a photo of this, but this pathway here, which is used for egress, because this particular building only has 1 exit. The second means of egress were through fire escapes. So these 2 alleyways, and right at this point right here is actually a little tunnel that goes through this first floor of the building and goes into the backyard. So the fire escapes in the back can exit through the tunnel and exit back to the street. So we will actually be utilizing the fire escapes again. We are adding a exterior egress stair in the back that will take people, in place of the fire escapes in the back, there'll be an egress stair in the back. So I think that's, there is 556 square feet of green roof, which is this area and this area. As permitted, we're allowed 1,000, with the zone allows is 1,065 square feet of deck space, which is here. The only volume that we're adding in the building is just to bring the stairs up to the roof and the bulkhead. The rest of the area is blocked off for mechanical equipment. So there won't be any, if this hopefully gets approved, you won't see any people hanging out over the front of the building. Everything is oriented towards the rear and towards the vegetated roof area. Let's see, okay. The front, as we could see in that, we are just really cleaning, restoring the facade, changing out lights. You won't obviously see any of the air conditions sticking out of the windows. All the units will have individual heat and air conditioning, and we will be replacing these lights. These obviously are not original lights. They're very industrial, so we'll be replacing the light fixtures. Okay, so we have 4 units. Let me see. 4 units in the basement. There's also an amenity in the basement, a small workout room. There is, of course, the building is not sprinklered now. It will be sprinklered. And there's the boiler room, a refuge area, and a new electric room, which is right, blow that up, which is right here. Electric room, fire protection room, refuge room, and boiler, hot water heaters, and that such. The front units have patios in the front, these 2 front units, and the back units are here. So we have 4 units in the basement, 5 units on the first floor, 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5. And I wanted to show you kind of like compare how the building was separated from the start. You can almost tell that the entry doors were here, an apartment unit was there, and then 2 more in the back. So it very much is in line with what the building was originally designed for. Oh, sorry about that. First floor. Second floor is 6 units on the second floor. This is the second floor is where we will be putting the 3-bedroom, which is right here in this corner. And then there's 6 units again, as I said, on the second floor. The 3rd bedroom is actually now turns this corner unit into a 1-bedroom. When we get to the next floor, that you'll see that turns into 2 2-bedroom units, 1 there and 1 there. And so Z10 is the elevations. I think this is probably important so the board can see. All the windows are being changed out. You can see that rear fire escapes are being removed. We have an opportunity to put an egress stair in. And then windows, we have new energy codes today. So there is a substantial upgrade in the energy code that warrants new windows, all new insulation system. So that's pretty much all we have. We're not changing the building facade at all.
So just before we move on from the front elevation, you were referring to basement and units in the basement. Just on that elevation, can you identify the floor that's the basement, just so we get a...
Yeah, if you see this line right here, that's the basement level. So base finished floors, just about level with grade. So we call it a basement, but that's what we are calling this a 4-story building, not a 3-story.
And Dennis, the basement units actually have access to outdoor...
These two front...
Sorry, what was the question?
The basement units have access to outdoor patio area.
Just the 2 front basement units, yeah. Like I think you can tell from here, and you look at the photograph, that heavily vegetated, overgrown area in the front is now being converted to 2 patios. So in closing, what we're really trying to do is just bring the building back to its original use, residential, restoring a very brilliant and iconic structure. So that's all I have. If you have any questions?
We'll hold the
We'll
questions till
hold,
the end.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll bring up our planner, who was already sworn in and remains under oath.
So good evening, everyone. I am going to go back up here. It's down here. This is very strange. Okay. So good evening, board. Pleasure to see you all again. We're here this evening for. No, you haven't. Just a couple minutes older. Yes, okay, so we're here this evening because we're here seeking a D1 use variance in order to allow this existing structure to be adaptively reused for a multifamily development, as well as a C variance for the location of the bicycle parking, which is going to be located in the rear yard. Just again, as a reminder, so this actually is sort of misidentifies our lot. We are actually this lot in here. So we are a U lot that's in between two R3 lots. So these are a series of multifamily dwellings that are of probably somewhat similar age and to our structure, that they're probably over 100 years old. And so this is part of the existing fabric of this block. Ooh, I did not know I could move that. Okay. So let's look at the picture of the building again. So the Zoning Board of Adjustment, as you are all aware, has a jurisdiction to grant D1 use variances with, under the Medici case, when you meet the certain criteria. Use promotes the general welfare, the property is particularly suitable to accommodate the proposed use, and the proposed use can be reconciled with the zoning ordinance. So, and when looking at site suitability for this project, as mentioned, this property is in the U district, which permits college and universities, parks and playgrounds, dormitories, fraternity or sorority houses, or meeting halls. The subject property was owned by the university, has been sold, and so it no longer serves a sort of its former university use. You know, it's can't really be a meeting hall. It's not a office building. It's not a lecture hall. So it no longer serves that function because the university no longer owns it. The existing structure on the site has been considered significant. And it's not really eligible for demolition to make way for either a new building or to serve as a park or a playground. So right now we are, again, looking at trying to decide what is that better planning alternative when we have a building that cannot be demolished and it no longer serves the function as a university use. There are other permitted uses, the dormitory, fraternity house, or sorority house. Again, these uses are very residential in character. They include bedrooms, bathrooms, laundry rooms, and eating facilities. These are all the different types of functions that a residential use would also house. So this use is very similar to those other permitted uses in character. However, unlike a typical residential use, there's no maximum density. Furthermore, I think that this project really is more consistent with the character of the block, which makes it more suitable to be a residential use because it allows for that wider range of occupants, including families and young professionals, in addition to students. So I think that makes this conversion of this existing building a better planning alternative than for it to be strictly like a dormitory or a fraternity or sorority house use. And then, as was mentioned, as my colleague Dennis had mentioned, given the existing layout of this building, adaptive reuse of the structure as a multifamily residential use is appropriate. There are existing walls that are being reused that sort of create sort of the framework in which we've adaptively created these new units. And the existing structure originally was developed as an apartment building, so we're merely returning this building to its former use. We're not proposing any expansions of the existing structure, only other than the one bulkhead to reach the roof with the stair. But we're not changing the facade. You know, we're not pulling the building closer to the street. We're not increasing into the rear. We're not increasing on the side. So the existing structure of the building is to remain, and really the focus here is on interior renovation and other necessary improvements to build bring the building up to modern building code and fire code standards. And then the site is also particularly suitable for this use given its location between two other mid-rise multifamily buildings that are in the R3 district. You've heard extensive discussions already this evening about university use in R3, but the fact that this site is located between these two other R3 buildings really makes this an appropriate sort of infill site, and the fact that there is an existing building on this site that is not going to be altered really, again, makes this site very suitable for the use that's being proposed here. The density we're proposing is 21 units, is also consistent with the character and the density of the adjacent properties. There are the multifamily properties on either side of us have very similar unit counts and density. This was proposing 21 units at about 125 units per acre. 100 Glenwood, which is, I believe, in this picture to our right, is 33 units at 125 units per acre. 106 Glenwood, which is on our other side, is 36 units at 215 units per acre. 110 Glenwood Avenue is 25 units at 119 units per acre. And 114 Glenwood Avenue, it's 25 units at is also 119 units per acre. So as you can see, the number of units and the density of proposed here is very consistent with the density of the other multifamily dwellings that are on this block that were in buildings that were developed at probably about the same time that this one was originally developed. Furthermore, this project is providing that 10% affordable housing. So we're providing that additional affordable housing where, if we were in another district of if we were located elsewhere, we could potentially use that affordable housing overlay, which allows buildings to eliminate density requirements as long as they meet the bulk requirements within the zone. And in this case, we're adaptively reusing an existing structure, and we're providing units within that structure without changing the physical character of the building. And then we also look at whether or not the development promotes the general welfare by advancing purposes of the MLUL. So again, I think you heard about this a lot already this evening. There's this purpose A, which is to encourage appropriate use of a property that will promote the public health, safety, moral, and general welfare. So in this case, I do believe this project meets that standard. We're adaptively reusing an existing structure. We're going to create a residential use between two different residential uses on a block that has a lot of residential use. So I believe that this is an appropriate use for this block. It will promote the public health and safety. With this redevelopment, we are going to be bringing this building up to modern building and fire code standards. So we are going to be creating a safer condition than there is today. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And then we look at purpose C, maintaining proposed adequate light, air, and open space to surrounding properties. So again, in this case, I do believe we meet this standard. This is an existing building. We're not changing anyone's access to light, air, or open space. There will be no impact from this development application beyond what there is existing today. The project will promote a desirable visual environment. Again, I do believe that this project will meet that standard, that's standard I. Again, we're going to be maintaining the existing structure. It's going to be rehabilitated in meeting the standards for rehabilitation of projects. We are going to be adding some landscaping in front of the building. The bushes that are there today will be removed, but there will be landscaping right along the fence line with some patios. And then we're going to have these street trees. So there's going to be new street trees within the public right-of-way. So I think all of that contributes to a development that, again, contributes to the character of the street and the improvement of the visual environment. And then additionally, the project is consistent with the intent purpose J, where by adaptively reusing the existing structures, we're going to conserve energy and natural resources. It's always better to reuse a structure where you can rather than to demolish it and lose that energy and carbon footprint of the materials that are already there. So I do believe that really meets that purpose J. And then looking at whether or not it can be reconciled with the zoning ordinance. The 2021 master plan recommended the creation of that university overlay zone, which, as you heard previously, would allow universities to continue to grow and improve facilities within the defined area surrounding the existing campus without rendering existing residential or other non-university uses non-conforming. This, again, in case is a little bit of reverse in that the university has sold this property, but I think it really meets that standard where we're trying to find a use for this project that is consistent with the character of the street and the uses surrounding it, in which case that would be a multifamily housing. The master plan continues that the overlay would potentially include underlying bulk regulations so that any development is consistent with the surrounding built environment. In this case, we're preserving an existing building. We're preserving the existing built environment for this property. And then whether or not looking at that other variance for our bicycle parking. So this is a C variance. It's not related to our use request. It is specifically for the section of the LDO which requires that bicycle parking be located indoors for residential uses. In this case, given the layouts of the existing building, we believe that putting it outside under a shelter would be a better alternative and allow for easier access to those bicycle spaces for tenants of the building. They are going to be covered, so they're not going to be exposed to the elements, which is sort of the intent and purpose of putting it inside. So we believe that we've still met the intent, and we are providing the appropriate number of spaces. So it's just the location exterior to the building that is the request for the variance. When we look at the negative criteria, I believe that this project will not result in a substantial detriment to the general welfare. We're adaptively reusing that existing structure. There's so many benefits from that. The character of the street is preserved. The embodied carbon, embodied energy of the building is preserved. We are going to take what was a university use and something that no longer functions for the university and turn it into a multifamily housing, which can be providing new homes for residents in Jersey City who maybe want to move to this neighborhood. And we're also going to be providing affordable housing, which is a great benefit for residents of the city. And really, again, we also are providing the benefits here of taking a building that has probably not had a lot of investment in terms of improvements to it and really bringing it up to those modern building and fire code standards. So really that provides a benefit not just for the people in the building, but also for the adjacent properties. And then I don't see that this is going to result in a substantial impairment to the intent or purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance. As I mentioned, the master plan discusses that the university district is not really functioning right now. It should be considered an overlay, which would allow for these underlying for an underlying zoning, which would allow for these sorts of uses to continue and or to be developed in this case. And I think that, again, it really meets that purpose of the master plan to address those issues of the zoning code. And by putting it into a residential use, it's consistent with the type of use that is permitted elsewhere on the block in that R3 district. So I don't see that it really is a substantial detriment to either the zone plan or to the zoning ordinance. And I think overall that this project can meet both the positive and negative criteria, not only for that D1 use variance, but also for that C variance for the bicycle parking. And that is the rest of my testimony.
All right, thank you, everyone. That does conclude our direct testimony. I would just reserve for summation at the end, but that does conclude our direct testimony.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this project at this time? Okay, just come up. Okay, just a reminder again, you have 3 minutes, and Mr. Shahid will be our timekeeper and let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. I don't think I'll take that long. I just wanted to say that this is the same block that we were discussing earlier, and I actually really like the work that the developer has done. I think it's a great example of adaptive reuse. And I'm not even sure if it's been used as student housing or faculty housing. Either way, it could be a beautiful building, and I think this developer will do a great job of making it beautiful once again. The only concern that I really have is that this property, I believe, is one of 4, if I'm not mistaken, that the developer will be working on our block, and this is definitely the smallest property, and I could be wrong, but I feel like there's going to be upwards of 300 or so units between the 4 different properties that this developer hopefully will be working on, and I generally like the plans for really all of the projects. The biggest concern is parking. There's, as it's probably no surprise to anyone on the board that students probably probably drive much less than your average citizen living in Jersey City or any city for that matter. And so this is a relatively small one-way block that already has significant density that, put it this way, as it is right now, parking on this block is already really difficult. So I know that there is no requirement for the developer to incorporate parking into the design. I can understand why. But I do think that, St. Peter's University sold these properties to the developer, and it's something that we've addressed with St. Peter's as our community group. We've discussed it with the developer as well. And so far, everyone just sort of seems to be saying, "Oh, well, there's nothing we can do. You should ask them." "Oh, well, there's nothing you should do that we can do. You should ask them." We're going to have so many new units on this block, and I don't know who to go to for assistance with this, but that's the big concern, and I think I can speak for my neighbors when I say that is the most genuine concern that we have for not just this property, but the hundreds of new residents that will be living on this relatively small one-way block. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Does anyone else want to make any comments from the public? Please come to the podium.
Good evening again. Looking at this project, it was wonderful to hear about the adaptive reuse and that this wasn't a developer who was seeking to demolish the building and build new and very different from its surroundings. This whole entire area, and I reside within the West Bergen East Lincoln Park neighborhood, which is a historic district, and we could not extend it across St. Peter's to capture the wonderful buildings on Glenwood and Highland. Some of them have been lost already, especially on Highland. So anyway, to see a developer adaptively reuse a building and to bring it back to what it was is encouraging for our neighborhood, because they're such lovely apartment buildings in which they aren't right up to the street. They do have greenery in front of them. This is true even on Duncan Avenue, where it just lends a different feel to a block with a lot of apartment buildings. And Glenwood Avenue has a lot of apartment buildings. So the green space in front of this building is significant and important. And even when they transform the front to plazas, hopefully they do it sensitively to the building if they're removing windows and putting in sliding doors so that they treat the building with that kind of respect. I would hope they take that into account. Parking, again, as Nathan had mentioned, listen, I graduated from St. Peter's. It's my alma mater, but they have not been a good community member to the neighborhood, honestly, from all the time that I have dealt with them. They are selling a lot of property, putting it all on the market at once. This block is getting at least a 25% change with all the property that they've sold. That's a huge amount of change to one given block. And St. Peter's is unwilling to come to the table to talk about shared parking. And you know what? We accommodate the universities. We bend over backwards as Jersey City. Whether it's NJCU or St. Peter's, we really give them the red carpet treatment. And you know what? They may be coming here about a building because they're telling us that they're going to build down on West Side Avenue a nursing school or something like that. Well, they may be coming because it could be 6 stories or 7 taller than necessary, or allowed, I should say, and maybe consider that they are not such a good partner and they need to be a better partner with their neighborhood. And that's all I ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening again. I would like to speak tonight to support this building. I have looked at the plans and I would like to support it with a sense of guardedness in light of the infrastructure concerns and in light of the parking concerns that were already mentioned. As someone else already said, and as the planner said, it's a great example of adaptive reuse. It's a beautiful early 1900s Art Deco building. It's still beautiful, and it will continue to shine through this, adaptive reuse of it. My understanding is that the building was most recently used by the university as offices, and maybe at some point was dorms. But in any case, I really do think that this is a good project. The reason that I have any sense of cautious optimism or guardedness is just because of the increased density and the infrastructure on this small one-way street. We will be back because this developer has purchased 4 large former dormitory properties. This is one of them. And, we do have concerns about, there was a water main break in the summer, and parking is creating a hostile environment. And we need to have these significant issues addressed as we grow. So, we're happy to see that the requirements are legally being met here, and the community also would like to see some additional beneficial criteria to existing residents. We would love to see that considered, not just the requirement. What we're talking about with the 4 buildings here is 157 units, 288 bedrooms, and 231 bathrooms. So give or take maybe 450 new neighbors. We're excited for our new neighbors. We're excited to not see this building be vacant at 104, and have it adaptively used and renovated. But it will have a serious impact on the neighborhood infrastructure. And, we'd like to see those concerns properly and reasonably addressed going forward. The only thing left that I have, as I said, guardedly support this project is I noticed that there was something in the architectural plans, and I wanted to ask about it if a demo was sought for this building at one time. It's on Arc Plans Mark 3 dated 3/15/23. At the bottom of the page, it says P7-2.1 demolition plan and zoning map. So I was just curious if there was a demo at some point applied for. Thank you.
Is that a question for Mr. Davino? Mr. Joseph?
Yes,
Is
so
that a question for Mr. Davino?
it is a question for Mr.
You know
DeVito.
what she's talking about?
I believe the note refers to, zoning board, planning board have been asking us to show what walls are coming down. So I believe the note refers to a demo plan that basically shows what part of the inside is being taken down and what part's staying. So, interior, or strictly interiors, yeah.
Okay.
Part of this package.
Okay. Before you begin,
Yes.
is there anyone else that needs to make a comment from the community? No? Okay. We're closing the public portion, yes.
So I do want to say we did meet with the community 3 different times, 3 different communities. So met with the Highland Avenue Association, which is the street to the rear of this building, and we met with McGinley Square and Lincoln Park jointly twice, once in July and once recently in January. There is other projects that my client is purchasing. Those are separate applications. That's not part of this application this evening. But I do want to note that 2 of those projects are on the agenda tonight, and we're not proceeding with those projects tonight because the community had additional comments for us that we're working with them on. We're only proceeding with this one. So, with that, that would conclude, I think, everything I have to say this evening.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments on this project? Commissioner Allen?
Oh, so I have one question. I think this is for Mr. Davino. On Z5, the interest is not being used anymore?
I'm sorry.
Z5 on the plans.
Okay. Z5, okay.
Yes.
First floor?
Yes. The main entrance is walled off?
Oh, no. No, this is, V5 is the basement level?
Yeah, the basement, sorry, basement.
You access the building from the first floor. There's a set of stairs that goes up to the first floor. So this is showing what's underneath the stair. That's where the existing water lines come in. So it looks like it's walled off, and it is walled off under the stairs.
Okay.
Because that's the basement level.
Gotcha.
But if you go to Z6, wait a minute. There's a set of stairs on the outside.
Yes, I see that,
Brings you
yes.
up to the main entrance.
Okay.
And then another section of stairs on the inside that gets you up to the first floor level.
Okay.
So no, that's not changed.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, I see the stairs, but when you look at Z5, it just looked like it's walled off altogether. Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I have a question. Can you show us on the plans exactly where the bikes are going to be located? And did I hear there are going to be 2 bikes? You can only store how many bikes?
I believe that was it. Yep, there we go. So I mentioned during the presentation that coming from the street, coming from Glenwood, there's a path of 4.5-foot alleyway, if you will, on the right side of the building, and it goes through a tunnel that is underneath the first floor level. Another set of stairs that gets you to the rear yard, and straight ahead, right here, right there is a pad where the bikes would be stored, and the shelter that's over the bikes will look like that.
how many bikes are there?
I believe there's 12.
12.
12 bikes, yeah.
So the staff memo does show 11, so let's just say 11.
Squeeze another one in there.
And I just had one other question that at this moment, we're looking to put in there 21 units. How many units, I mean, I know our planner spoke about the building here, the building next with the building there. How many units were actually in that building when it was being used as an apartment dwelling, not as a dormitory?
I tried to count what,
I think so. I think what
oh, did
I think
the
it's in the staff
historic
report.
mention it?
The
Oh,
historic.
okay.
Hold on. Let me- So there's a historic tax card on page 7 of the staff report, and it's 16 units.
It was 16, okay. And I'd like, this is just a comment. I'm a serious bird watcher, and I travel all over. So you're saying that you found windows that birds are not going to fly into?
Honestly,
They'll be sitting in those 2 trees that you're putting out
And
front more than
Chairperson,
flying
this
into
is
your windows.
Believe me, it's a first for us too. So we are going to, we've done some research. There is glass that has some etching in it that helps the birds identify a wall in lieu of an opening.
I know.
So we can do the best we can.
Okay.
It was something very important to the community, and we
Okay.
wanted to accommodate that.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? No. Okay. Is there anyone, I'd like to get a motion?
No, we didn't hear from staff, I think.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear from staff. Tanya?
I'll make it quick and painless.
Please.
Francisco sent the report. I don't think anything needs to be reiterated. He's recommending approval. There's affordable housing here, it's adaptive reuse, and there is a memo from Maggie O'Neill, the historic preservationist, which has to be met as part of the condition of approval. Francisco did outline some conditions of approval. As long as you read them, I'm fine not reading them into the record.
The applicant and I have reviewed them. They're acceptable, and in addition to those conditions, also Maggie's February 8th letter has 2 additional conditions that we are also supposed to comply with. We agreed to those as well.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from the commissioners after hearing from staff? Okay, can I get a motion to vote on case Z22-077?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case Z22-077 as presented to the board this evening.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, on the motion to approve with conditions, Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Barron,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Shadid, Commissioner Zloblicki,
Yes.
Vice Chair Arujo,
Yes.
and Chair Coyle.
Yes.
The motion carries, 7 in favor, none opposed, none abstained.
Okay.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening, and we're just a couple minutes shy of 10 o'clock, so.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other business to take care of, Mr. LaPaglia?
We have 4 resolutions to memorialize. I couldn't get that word out, I'm sorry. Yes. The first resolution was heard, the application was heard April 27th. The applicant was 199 Summit Avenue LLC. The case was Z23-018. It was for an extension of final and major site plan approval with C and D variances. That was approved, 7 in favor, none opposed. On April 27th, the commissioners were Chairman Jacobs, Commissioner Coyle, Shadid, Arroyo, Donnelly, Allen, and Park. All in favor of memorializing that.
Aye.
Aye.
And the next 3 applications were heard on January 11th. All 3 were approved, 7 in favor, none opposed. On January 11th, there was a Chairwoman Coyle, Commissioners Arroyo, Shadid, Boyle, Patel, Allen, and Barron. The first case is Z20-019, Emmanuel Realty LLC, a minor subdivision application with C&D variances for 64-68 Harmon Street and 413-419 Arlington Avenue. Again, that passed 7 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
And then the companion case, Z20-020, Emmanuel Realty, a preliminary and final major site plan approval with C&D variances. That also passed 7 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye. And the last case, Z20-102, again, same date, same 7 commissioners, same vote, 7 in favor, none opposed. Stretke Corp., Strekte Corp., preliminary and final major site plan application in conjunction with the C&D variances for 129 Linden Avenue. That passed 7 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
And that concludes the resolutions.
Do we need an executive session?
No.
Okay.
please.
I motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.